The fabric of reality screamed as it tore open above West City. Not the gentle shimmer of instant transmission or the calculated precision of a time ring portal. This was violence against the cosmos itself. A jagged wound in space vomited purple energy that sent every scouter within 100 miles into static chaos. Bulma's latest satellite array exploded in a shower of sparks as readings spiked beyond comprehension. Numbers scrolling so rapidly her screens couldn't keep pace. In the Capsule Corporation laboratory, alarms shrieked warnings about dimensional instability, gravity fluctuations, and an energy signature that refused to categorize itself as anything her databases recognized. Through that cosmic wound stepped a figure who made the afternoon sun seem dim by comparison. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his purple skin marked with deep lines that spoke of age and warfare. The being's armor was gold and blue, a conqueror's regalia that had seen countless battlefields across realities that Dragon Ball's universe had never touched. His eyes, those terrible, knowing eyes, surveyed West City with the detached assessment of someone who had watched civilizations rise and fall like grains of sand. The dimensional rift sealed behind him with a sound like thunder dying, leaving only the mad titan standing in the middle of the street as hovercars swerved and citizens screamed. Thanos of Titan had arrived in Universe 7. On Beerus's planet, millions of miles away, the god of destruction's cat-like ears twitched. Whis' staff glowed with sudden interest, projecting an image of the purple warrior standing amid the chaos of West City. My, the angel said, his perpetually calm voice carrying a note of genuine curiosity. That's not a power signature from any of the known universes. How interesting. Beerus cracked open one eye from his afternoon nap, irritation warring with intrigue on his feline features. The stranger's energy felt wrong, not key, not God key, something entirely other. It reminded him of the feeling he'd gotten when Zeno had shown him glimpses of realities beyond even the Omni King's domain. At Goku's house on Mount Paozu, the Saiyan warrior's head snapped up from his lunch. His chopsticks clattered to the table, forgotten, as he sensed nothing. That was the problem. Whatever had just arrived on Earth, it didn't register on his key senses at all. It was like trying to see through a wall, knowing something massive stood on the other side but unable to perceive it directly. Chi-Chi's voice faded to background noise as Goku pressed 2 fingers to his forehead, searching for Bulma's energy signature. If something this strange had appeared in West City, she'd know about it. And more importantly, if it was powerful enough to tear through dimensions, it might want to fight. The thought made his Saiyan blood sing with anticipation, even as his Earth-raised conscience reminded him that unknown arrivals usually meant danger for his friends. Vegeta felt it too, standing in Capsule Corp's gravity chamber when every system suddenly crashed. The 500x gravity field collapsed, and the Saiyan Prince dropped from his mid-air training stance, landing on his feet with cat-like grace despite the surprise. His scouter, an upgraded model Bulma had built for nostalgia's sake, sparked and died on his face. Whatever had just interfered with the facility's power grid operated on a wavelength that defied the technology. The prince ripped the useless device from his face and crushed it, his pride already bristling. First that dimensional tear, now his training interrupted. If some alien conqueror thought they could simply arrive on Earth without consequences, they would learn why the Saiyan Prince bowed to no one. In West City's Central Plaza, Thanos stood motionless as the initial panic subsided into wary distance. Humans, this universe had humans, just like the ones he'd known. Weaker though, their power levels barely registering on his battle-honed instincts. The architecture spoke of advanced technology married to casual convenience. Flying vehicles, compact storage devices, energy weapons on the police officers now surrounding him with shaking hands. A developed civilization, but one that had never faced true universal threat. He could see it in their eyes. They expected their authorities to handle this. They had no concept of the Mad Titan's purpose, the weight of destiny that had driven him across realities. Freeze. Identify yourself. The police captain's voice cracked on the last word. His energy pistol was trained on Thanos' chest, a weapon that might have troubled a lesser being. Thanos regarded him with the patience of stone. I am Thanos of Titan. I seek an audience with this world's strongest warriors. His voice carried the weight of absolute certainty, each word measured and deliberate. Tell them the Mad Titan has come to understand what universal balance means in this reality. The words had barely left his mouth when a familiar sound split the air, the instant displacement of instant transmission. Goku materialized 15 feet away, his orange gi brilliant in the afternoon sun. His expression caught between defensive readiness and barely contained excitement. The Saiyan's eyes locked onto Thanos, and for the first time since arriving, the Mad Titan felt a tingle of genuine interest. This one was different. Power radiated from him like heat from a star, restrained but vast, and his stance spoke of countless battles survived through more than just strength. So you're the one who made that big entrance? Goku said, his voice friendly despite the tension crackling in the air. His fingers didn't move toward his forehead for another teleport, and he wasn't powering up. Not yet. I can't sense your energy at all, which is pretty weird. Are you here to fight, or are you in trouble? Because if you need help, we've got Dragon Balls that can... I need nothing from this world, Thanos interrupted, his gaze never leaving the Saiyan, except to understand its power structure. You carry yourself as a warrior. Tell me, what is the strongest force in this universe? Not just strength of body, but strength of will. Who decides the fate of worlds here? Goku's expression shifted, growing more serious. His hand lowered slightly, no longer ready to block an immediate attack. That's kind of a complicated question, but if you're asking who protects Earth, that'd be us. Me and my friends. He paused, studying the purple Titan with those innocent yet piercing eyes. You said something about balance. What does that mean to you? If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. The adventure never ends. Thanos' mouth curved into something that might have been a smile on a less intimidating face. Finally, someone asking the right questions. Balance means understanding that unchecked growth leads to universal collapse. Resources finite, life infinite. The equation always ends in suffering unless corrected. He took a single step forward, and Goku's posture tightened reflexively. I have crossed dimensional barriers to find this universe's solution to that problem. Your Dragon Balls, I heard your mention of them. Wish-granting artifacts? Yeah, but Goku's expression changed as he processed the implication. Wait, you're not thinking about using them for something crazy, are you? Because we've had a lot of people try that, and it never really works out how they... The air beside them rippled, and Vegeta materialized in a blur of blue ki, already transformed into Super Saiyan Blue. His hair blazed azure, his aura crackling with divine energy that sent nearby cars skidding backward from the pressure. The prince's eyes locked onto Thanos with undisguised hostility. Kakarot, step aside. This conquistador thinks he can simply appear on my planet and make demands? Thanos' smile widened. Now this was more what he'd expected. The second warrior's power dwarfed the first current state godly energy that reminded him of the celestials he'd once opposed. This universe's power scale was already proving more interesting than anticipated. Both warriors carried themselves with the confidence of beings who had faced extinction-level threats and emerged victorious. Good. Weak opponents taught nothing. Your planet? Thanos' voice carried amusement now. Tell me, Prince of Pride, how many worlds have you conquered in the name of balance? How many civilizations have you saved from their own excess? Vegeta's aura flared brighter, the ground beneath his feet cracking. I've saved this universe from threats you couldn't imagine, monster. And if you think, Vegeta, wait! Goku's hand shot up, but his tone suggested he wasn't entirely sure waiting was the right call either. Let's just figure out what he wants before we start destroying the city. Again. High above, a woman's voice cut through the tension with exasperated fury. All of you stop posturing in the middle of my city. Bulma descended in a hover car, her blue hair whipping in the wind generated by Vegeta's aura. She looked absolutely furious, which somehow made her more terrifying than either of the universe-class warriors below. Vegeta, power down before you wreck another shopping district. And you purple giant, I don't know what universe you crawled out of, but you're paying for the satellite array you just destroyed. Thanos found himself genuinely surprised for the first time in decades. This human woman, with a power level that barely registered, had just issued commands to beings who could obliterate planets. And more surprisingly, the prince's aura dimmed slightly, his expression caught between irritation and something almost like contrition. Perhaps this universe held more lessons about balance than he'd anticipated. Bulma's hovercar touched down with practiced ease, and she stepped out, still jabbing her finger at the three warriors like a teacher scolding unruly students. I mean it, Vegeta. The insurance company already flagged our account after the last incident with that Universe 6 Saiyan. And Goku, you can't just instant transmission into active crime scenes without coordinating with... She stopped mid-rant as her eyes finally took in Thanos' full appearance. The Mad Titan stood a full head taller than either Saiyan, his presence seeming to bend the space around him through sheer gravitational force of will. Bulma's scientific mind immediately began cataloging details, armor, composition unknown, physiological structure suggesting extreme durability, and those eyes that held calculation depths that reminded her uncomfortably of when Frieza had first arrived on Namek. Bulma, get back to Capsule Corp, Vegeta said, his voice still carrying that divine edge even as his blue transformation faded to base form. This creature crossed dimensional barriers. Whatever his purpose, it involves power beyond your comprehension. Don't you dare beyond my comprehension me. Bulma snapped back, though she took 2 subtle steps backward. I built a time machine, a dragon radar, and I keep your gravity chamber from imploding every other week. I think I can handle... Thanos raised one massive hand, palm outward in a gesture of surprising gentleness. Your concern for these warriors speaks well of this world's social structure. I mean, your people know immediate harm. His gaze shifted to Goku, then Vegeta, measuring them with the patience of someone who had evaluated countless opponents across galaxies. But I must understand what I have found. This universe, the energy you wield, it is not the power cosmic, not the fundamental forces I have known. Explain. Goku scratched his head, his defensive posture relaxing slightly. Well, it's called ki. It's like life energy. Everyone has it, but warriors can control it, make it stronger through training. And he brightened suddenly, that innocent enthusiasm breaking through. Hey, are you saying you want to learn about ki? Because we could go to Kami's lookout, or maybe ask Whis to Kakarot. Have you lost what little mind you possess? Vegeta's hand clenched into a fist, and small arcs of energy crackled around his knuckles. This being speaks of balance through control, arrives through dimensional violence, and immediately asks about wish-granting artifacts. He is a conqueror assessing his next target. The prince sees clearly. Thanos acknowledged without shame, "I am indeed a conqueror. I have laid waste to 1,000 worlds in pursuit of universal equilibrium. I have stared into the face of cosmic abstracts and made them reconsider their purpose. I have held the power to reshape reality itself." He paused, and something almost like regret flickered across his features. "And I have paid prices you cannot imagine for those victories. But I do not conquer for glory or pleasure, Saiyan Prince. I conquer because unchecked existence leads only to suffering and collapse." "That's insane," Goku said flatly, his usual cheerfulness evaporating. "Life isn't about balance through killing. It's about getting stronger, protecting people who can't protect themselves. And how many times has your Earth been destroyed in pursuit of that philosophy?" Thanos countered. The question landed like a physical blow. "I can see it in your eyes, warrior. You have watched this world burn multiple times, unless I misread the grief buried beneath your smile. Your Dragon Balls resurrect the fallen, creating a cycle where death holds no true consequence. Do you not see the imbalance in that? Life without cost becomes life without value." Bulma's eyes widened. "How do you know about the Earth being destroyed?" "You've been here for 5 minutes. I have witnessed the death of universes," Thanos replied simply. "The signs are always the same. Rebuilt cities with architecture too uniform, populations that carry collective trauma just beneath their civilized surface, and warriors whose eyes have seen their world end yet still carry hope. This planet has been resurrected." He looked directly at Goku. "And you blame yourself for it. Interesting." The silence that followed was heavier than Vegeta's gravity chamber at maximum settings. Goku's expression had gone carefully neutral, but his fists clenched at his sides. The Mad Titan had struck deeper than any physical blow could reach, touching on the guilt that Son Goku carried in his quietest moments. The knowledge that his mercy toward enemies had sometimes cost everything. Vegeta broke the silence with a sound that was half laugh, half snarl. "Your philosophy is the babbling of a madman dressed in false wisdom. You speak of balance, but I know conquerors. I was one. I served one." His voice dropped, becoming deadly quiet. "And the only balance they ever sought was power in their own hands and submission everywhere else. Frieza spoke of order too before he destroyed planet Vegeta and everyone He cut himself off, his jaw tight. Thanos regarded the prince with something approaching respect. "Then you understand the weight of necessary action, the burden of doing what others lack the will to accomplish. Tell me, Prince, when you served this Frieza, did you ever question whether the universe might be better without him?" "Every damn day," Vegeta admitted, his honesty surprising even Goku. "And when I finally got strong enough, I tried to end him. Failed. But then Kakarot succeeded where I couldn't. That's the difference between your philosophy and ours, Titan. We don't decide who deserves to live. We get stronger so we can defeat those who make that choice for others." "A distinction without a difference," Thanos said, but his tone suggested he was genuinely considering the argument. "You still eliminate threats. You simply wait until they have already caused suffering rather than preventing it beforehand. Reactive rather than proactive. Tell me how many died in the time between Frieza's tyranny and his eventual defeat." Goku stepped forward, his voice carrying an edge that rarely surfaced. "Millions. Billions, probably. And yeah, that keeps me up at night. But you know what the real difference is? His eyes met Thanos's without flinching. We don't decide we're the ones who get to judge an entire universe. We protect people. We give them chances to change, to get better. Vegeta used to work for Frieza. Now he's saved the universe more times than I can count. If someone had killed him for balance back then, all those people he saved would be dead. Thanos' expression shifted, a crack appearing in his philosophical certainty. An exception that proves the rule. For every reformed warrior, how many tyrants continue their rampage? Then we get stronger and stop them. Goku's voice rose, passion breaking through. That's what Saiyans do. We break our limits, we train, we get powerful enough to protect everyone. We don't give up on people just because it's easier than fighting. The Mad Titan studied Goku with new intensity, as if seeing him clearly for the first time. Here was a warrior who had clearly reached godly levels of power. The blue-haired transformation the prince had displayed suggested as much, yet who clung to an almost childlike belief in redemption and growth. It defied everything Thanos had learned across centuries of cosmic conflict. Resources were finite, power consolidated, the strong dominated. These were universal constants, except apparently not in this universe. Your Super Dragon Balls, Thanos said abruptly, changing tactics. I have sensed their echo across dimensional barriers. Artifacts of such power, they can be detected even from other realities. What prevents someone from using them to implement true universal balance? To ensure resources match population across all existence? Bulma's face went pale. Oh no, 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 no. You're not seriously thinking about using the Super Dragon Balls for some kind of universal genocide? Not genocide, Thanos corrected, his voice patient. Selection. Random, dispassionate, fair. Half of all life across the cosmos, painlessly erased. Resources doubled overnight. Suffering eliminated. A grateful universe. Vegeta's aura exploded back to life before Thanos could finish the sentence. But this time, it wasn't Super Saiyan Blue. His hair remained black, but his aura darkened to purple-black energy that crackled with destructive intent, the beginnings of a technique Whis had been teaching him, something about tapping into the power of destruction itself. The prince's eyes blazed with fury that went beyond personal pride. You dare speak of erasing half of all existence while standing on my planet, on my wife's property, near my son? The temperature dropped as Vegeta's power spiked, and Thanos felt it a genuine threat. This wasn't just Ki. This was something fundamentally different, aggressive in a way that reminded him of when he'd briefly touched the Power Stone without the gauntlet. Energy meant to unmake rather than harm. The Mad Titan's stance shifted subtly, his muscles coiling for combat, while his tactical mind calculated distances, power outputs, and the structural integrity of the surrounding city. Vegeta, wait, Goku shouted, but his voice carried less conviction than before. Even the pure-hearted Saiyan understood that some philosophies couldn't be talked around. His own power began rising, blue energy flickering around him in preparation. Thanos didn't move to attack. Instead, he spoke calmly into the building pressure. Your rage blinds you to the question's sincerity. I did not say I would implement such a plan. I asked what prevents it. In my reality, I required 6 Infinity Stones to accomplish universal balance. Here, I sense that your Super Dragon Balls could achieve the same with a single wish. Yet your universe still teems with unchecked life. What stops someone from acting? The fact that anyone who tried would have to go through every single one of us, Goku said quietly, his friendly demeanor completely gone. For a moment, Thanos could see the warrior who had fought gods, the Saiyan who had tapped into powers beyond mortal comprehension. And we don't lose. Everyone loses eventually, Thanos replied. That is entropy's only guarantee. But I admit, curiosity, you speak with certainty born of experience. How many universal threats have you faced? Boo could have destroyed the universe if he'd won, Goku said, counting on his fingers. Beerus almost did just because he didn't like a party. Zamasu actually succeeded in one timeline. The Tournament of Power had 8 universes fighting to not get erased, and we won that. Oh, and Frieza tried to destroy Earth twice. Frieza's brother came by once. Cell would have blown up the solar system if... Enough bragging, Kakarot. Vegeta snapped, though his aura dimmed slightly. The point is, Titan, your philosophy has been tested and rejected by beings far more powerful than you. Zeno-sama, the Omni King who rules all existence, could erase anything with a thought. But he doesn't pursue your balance. The gods of destruction could cull populations across universes. They choose not to. Your madness is rejected at every level of cosmic hierarchy. Thanos absorbed this information, his strategic mind racing. An Omni King who could erase anything but chose not to. Gods of destruction who maintain balance through selective elimination rather than wholesale slaughter. A universal structure that explicitly rejected his core philosophy. Either this reality operated on fundamentally different principles than his own, or he had been wrong. The thought sat in his mind like a stone, heavy and uncomfortable. Thanos of Titan did not make mistakes. He calculated, he planned, he executed with perfect precision. His entire existence had been built on the certainty that he alone possessed the will to do what was necessary. Yet here stood warriors who had faced threats he could barely comprehend, protected a universe that should have collapsed under its own growth, and still believed in redemption over culling. I propose a test, Thanos said finally. His posture shifted from combat ready to something almost relaxed, though his eyes remained sharp. Not of your strength, Science. I can see that you possess power enough to challenge even my considerable abilities. A test of conviction. Show me this universe's power structure. Introduce me to your gods of destruction, your guardians, your strongest warriors. Let me see firsthand how a universe survives without the balance I've devoted my existence to achieving. Vegeta's aura flickered uncertainly. And if we refuse, then I will seek answers through force. Thanos replied honestly. I have not crossed dimensional barriers to retreat at the first philosophical disagreement. I will understand this reality, either through cooperation or conquest. The choice is yours. Goku and Vegeta exchanged a look, and Bulma recognized the silent communication that passed between them. Years of rivalry, fighting side by side against impossible odds, and grudging mutual respect had created a bond neither would openly acknowledge. Finally, Goku spoke. If we do this, you have to agree to no destroying cities or hurting people while you're looking around. And if you try to gather the Super Dragon Balls for your crazy balance plan, we stop you. Deal? Acceptable, Thanos agreed. I am a warrior of my word. I will observe before acting. A pause. And I will not harm innocents unnecessarily during this observation. Unnecessarily, Vegeta repeated darkly. That word is doing considerable work in your promise, Titan. Before Thanos could respond, the air shimmered with a different quality of arrival. Not instant transmission, not violent dimensional tearing. This was something refined, casual, effortless. Whis materialized beside them, his staff glowing softly, his expression carrying its usual serene amusement. The angel looked Thanos up and down with the same mild curiosity someone might show a particularly interesting insect. My, what an unusual reading you give off, Whis said pleasantly. Not Ki, not godly Ki, something quite alien indeed. Lord Beerus was napping, but your arrival disrupted his rest. He's not particularly pleased about that. The angel's smile never wavered, but his words carried undertones that made even Thanos' battle-hardened instincts tighten. He asked me to investigate whether this disruption required his personal attention or simply erasure, Thanos studied this new arrival carefully. The angel carried himself with complete confidence, zero defensive posture, as if the concept of threat was foreign to him. His power level was impossible to read, not because it was hidden like Thanos' own, but because it seemed to exist on a wavelength that defied measurement. This was a being of a completely different tier. "I am Thanos of Titan," he said carefully. "I seek understanding of this universe's power structure and its approach to universal balance." "How wonderfully academic," Whis replied. "Though I must say, the residual energy from your arrival suggests you've been tampering with dimensional barriers. Very dangerous that. The omni-fabric between realities isn't meant to be torn through like cheap fabric." He tapped his staff, and a holographic display appeared showing the damage Thanos' entrance had caused. Reality literally scarred across multiple dimensional layers. Goku leaned in, fascinated. "Whis, is that stuff gonna heal on its own? Or, oh, it should repair itself within a few millennia," Whis said breezily. "Unless someone else tries to use that particular weak point, in which case the dimensional walls could collapse entirely and we'd have a rather inconvenient multiversal incident." He turned his placid gaze back to Thanos. "You wouldn't happen to know of anyone else in your home reality who might attempt to follow you, would you?" Thanos' jaw tightened imperceptibly. In his reality, beings like Dr. Strange protected dimensional barriers. If his crossing had left wounds, other entities might indeed attempt to exploit them. "No one who would follow me specifically. But opportunists exist in every reality." Yes, they do tend to be universal constants, don't they?" Whis agreed. "Well then, Lord Beerus has decided that you're interesting enough to warrant a visit rather than immediate Hakai. He's asked that I bring you to his planet for tea and interrogation. Not necessarily in that order." Vegeta's eyes widened fractionally. "Whis, are you certain that's wise? This being speaks of erasing half of all life across the universe. Beerus-sama might take offense to someone else doing his job." "Oh, I'm quite certain Lord Beerus will have opinions," Whis said with that maddening serenity. "Which is precisely why this conversation should happen sooner rather than later. Mr. Thanos, if you would be so kind as to—" "I do not take orders," Thanos interrupted, his pride finally asserting itself. "I agreed to observe this universe's power structure, not submit to interrogation by its authorities." The temperature seemed to drop despite the afternoon sun. Whis' smile didn't change, but something in the air itself shifted. "Oh dear, I'm afraid I may have given the wrong impression. That wasn't a request, it was me being polite. You see, Lord Beerus is a god of destruction. When he takes interest in something, it either entertains him or he eliminates it. Given that your philosophical musings involve erasing half of all life in his universe, which he rather considers his job, not yours, I'd suggest cooperation is in your best interest." Thanos felt it then true danger. For the first time since arriving, this angel, speaking in friendly tones about tea and conversation, was simultaneously making it clear that refusal meant confrontation with a being called a god of destruction. The Mad Titan had faced gods before, but something in the complete confidence of this universe's representatives suggested their gods operated on scales he hadn't yet comprehended. "An audience with your god of destruction," Thanos said slowly. "Very well. I accept." "Splendid." Whis tapped his staff, and a gentle light began enveloping them. "Goku, Vegeta, you're welcome to come along. I'm sure Lord Beerus would enjoy seeing familiar faces, and you can help explain Earth's perspective to our dimensional visitor." "Wait, right now?" Goku asked. "But I promised Chi-Chi-I'd." "Kakarot, do not make me regret defending this planet alongside you," Vegeta growled, already stepping into the teleportation field. "If Beerus-sama is taking interest, we need to be present." Bulma threw up her hands. "Sure. Just leave me here to explain to the police why a purple giant tore a hole in the sky. I'll add it to my list of things I never thought I'd have to do." But her voice carried fondness despite the exasperation. "Vegeta, If you come back dead again, I'm not using the Dragon Balls to wish you back for a month." "Noted," Vegeta replied dryly. The light intensified, and West City dissolved around them. Thanos felt the displacement, the shift between locations that wasn't quite teleportation, as he understood it more like moving along a higher dimensional axis. The sensation was disorienting but brief. When reality reassembled, they stood on a small planet that defied astronomical physics. It was barely larger than an asteroid, yet possessed normal gravity and a breathable atmosphere. A massive tree grew impossibly from the center, and in its shade sat a being that made Thanos' tactical instincts scream warnings. Lord Beerus, god of destruction, looked like a purple humanoid cat lounging in comfortable robes. His ears twitched with irritation, and his golden eyes opened to regard the new arrival with the casual disdain of someone who had obliterated planets between breakfast courses. "So," Beerus said, his voice carrying the drowsy irritation of interrupted sleep, "you're the idiot who tore a hole in my universe's dimensional walls. Start explaining before I decide. Erasing you is easier than listening." Thanos had faced the judgment of cosmic beings before he'd stood before the living tribunal, bargained with death herself, and challenged the Celestials' ancient verdicts. But standing before Beerus, god of destruction, carried a different weight. The cat-like deity radiated power that wasn't aggressive or threatening in its presentation. It simply existed like gravity or time, an inevitable force that required no posturing. His golden eyes assessed Thanos with the same interest someone might show a talking insect curious about the novelty, but fully aware of how easily it could be squashed. "Lord Beerus," Whis said smoothly, moving to present a tray of what appeared to be elaborate desserts. "May I present Thanos of Titan? From an entirely different reality, he's come seeking to understand our universe's approach to population balance and resource management." "How boring," Beerus said flatly, though he immediately reached for one of the desserts. He bit into it, and his expression shifted through several stages of pleasure before settling back into irritation. "Whis. These are adequate. Not exceptional, but adequate." He turned his attention back to Thanos while still chewing. "You, purple thing. Whis says you want to erase half of all life for balance. Explain why I shouldn't Hakai you right now for suggesting doing my job poorly." Thanos remained standing while the others settled into various positions around Beerus's lounging area. Goku immediately sat cross-legged, comfortable in the god's presence in a way that spoke of friendship. Vegeta stood at attention, pride and respect warring in his posture. The Mad Titan chose to remain standing as well, meeting Beerus's gaze directly. "In my reality, I observe universal collapse approaching," Thanos began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "Finite resources stretched across infinite population growth, every world consuming itself into eventual extinction, suffering multiplied across countless species. I sought the Infinity Stone's artifacts of ultimate power to implement a solution. Random selection, no prejudice, no favoritism. Half of all life across the universe, gone instantly and painlessly. Resources doubled. Suffering eliminated." "And you thought this was a good idea?" Beerus asked, his tone suggesting he'd heard many stupid ideas in his long existence, but this ranked impressively high. "I thought it was the only idea," Thanos corrected. "I devoted my existence to it. Destroyed worlds that resisted, eliminated entire civilizations that stood in my way. I became the universe's most feared conqueror, not through desire for power, but through necessity. Someone had to possess the will to act." Goku shifted uncomfortably. "But that's just mass murder dressed up with fancy words. You can't just decide who lives and dies." "Can't I?" Thanos turned to face the Saiyan. "You have. Every time you chose to kill an enemy rather than attempt redemption. Every time you let someone live who went on to kill others. Every time you decided your judgment superseded their right to continue existing. The only difference is scale and honesty about what we are." "That's completely different," Goku protested. "I only fight people who are trying to hurt innocents, and I always give them a chance to stop, to change. I never just decide randomly that someone should die." Precisely my point, Thanos replied. You select based on current behavior and assume future threats justify preemptive action. I selected based on mathematical certainty and implemented preventive measures. Both involved deciding who deserves life. I simply acknowledged what I was doing. Vegeta's fist clenched. You're twisting logic to justify madness. When we eliminate threats, we do so after they've proven themselves irredeemable through action. You propose eliminating half of all beings, regardless of whether they've done anything wrong. An infant dying in its mother's arms because your random selection deemed it necessary. A scientist on the verge of solving their world's energy crisis, gone before completing their work. You don't prevent suffering, you guarantee it. Short-term suffering preventing long-term collapse, Thanos countered, but his voice carried less certainty than before. These warriors had clearly spent considerable time contemplating the ethics of power, and their arguments cut deeper than simple moral outrage. Beerus bit into another dessert, chewed thoughtfully, then spoke around the mouthful. You're both being tedious. Here's the actual answer. I'm a god of destruction. My job is maintaining universal balance by eliminating planets that have become problems, worlds where civilization has stagnated, species that threaten multiversal stability, beings who've grown so powerful they disrupt the natural order. I've destroyed thousands of planets across millions of years. And you know what I've never done? He leaned forward, his eyes suddenly sharp. Random elimination, because that's lazy, stupid, and ineffective. Thanos felt himself bristle at lazy and stupid, but he remained silent, recognizing that this being's perspective carried weight beyond philosophical debate. Let me explain something about actual universal balance. Beerus continued, settling back into his lounging position. Life and death aren't opposites, they're partners. The Supreme Kais create life. I destroy what becomes imbalanced. Together, we maintain equilibrium. But it's not about numbers or resources. It's about quality, potential, and cosmic harmony. A civilization that's abandoned growth, that's become parasitic or stagnant, that gets destroyed. A warrior who threatens to disrupt dimensional barriers through arrogance, Hakkaid, but random elimination? That's not balance. That's just you playing God, because you couldn't solve the actual problems. The actual problems being resource scarcity and unchecked population growth, Thanos said, which your universe apparently solves how? Through hope and training? Through wish-granting artifacts that let you resurrect the dead and circumvent natural consequences? Through adaptation and growth, Whis interjected gently. You see, Mr. Thanos, our universe operates on principles that may seem foreign to you. Key, the life energy that warriors manipulate isn't simply a weapon. It's proof that consciousness can transcend physical limitations. Warriors like Goku and Vegeta have surpassed gods through nothing but determination and training. Entire civilizations have learned to exist in harmony with their worlds through technological and spiritual advancement. The challenges that caused your universe's resource crisis simply don't develop the same way here. That's impossible, Thanos stated flatly. Growth always exceeds resources eventually. It's mathematical certainty. Is it? Whis smiled. Capsule Corporation, the company owned by Vegeta's wife, has developed technology that stores matter in pocket dimensions, infinite storage capacity, effectively eliminating resource transportation concerns. The Namekians grow all their food through photosynthesis and water, requiring minimal planetary resources. The Yardrats have learned to teleport across galaxies, making resource distribution instantaneous. And that's just 3 examples from Universe 7. Shall I continue? Thanos' mind raced, processing implications. A universe where technological and biological adaptation had evolved alongside consciousness elevation, where the problems he'd faced had been solved, not through culling or brutal necessity, but through innovation and growth. The foundation of his entire philosophy suddenly seemed less certain. Even if your universe has found alternative solutions, Thanos said, his voice carrying a hint of desperation he would have denied, that doesn't invalidate the principle. In realities where such solutions don't exist, where populations face inevitable collapse, Action must be taken. Then develop the solutions, Goku said simply. If you're smart enough to find these Infinity Stone things, and powerful enough to fight off entire worlds, why not use that to help them figure out how to survive instead of killing half of everyone? Because beings resist change, Thanos replied. They cling to their comfortable destruction even as it kills them. I have seen civilizations choose extinction over adaptation countless times. So let them, Beerus said coldly. If a species is too stupid to save itself, it gets destroyed. That's natural selection on a cosmic scale, and it works fine without your interference. The problem isn't that you wanted to save the universe, it's that you decided you alone possess the wisdom to determine how everyone else should live. That's not balance. That's tyranny with philosophical window dressing. The word tyranny hit Thanos like a physical blow. He'd called himself many things, the Mad Titan, Death's Champion, the Inevitable Correction, but never a tyrant. Tyrants sought power for its own sake, conquered for glory and control. He had sought only to implement necessary solutions to impossible problems. Except these beings claimed to have solved those problems without his methods. Except every argument they raised exposed cracks in his certainty. Except he'd crossed dimensional barriers and found a universe that had rejected his core philosophy at every level and thrived. In my universe, Thanos said quietly, I succeeded. I gathered the Infinity Stones. I implemented the balance. Half of all life. Gone in an instant. His voice carried neither pride nor regret, just statement of fact. And the remaining populations did thrive for a time. Resources abundant, worlds recovering, suffering reduced. For a time, Vegeta repeated. And then what? Populations regrow. Your balance was temporary, requiring repeated culling. You'd have to keep killing eternally to maintain it. Yes, Thanos admitted. That was always the flaw in the plan. A permanent solution requiring eternal vigilance and repeated implementation. I knew it even as I acted. So you knew it didn't actually work, Goku said, his voice heavy with something between pity and anger. You killed half the universe knowing it wouldn't even fix the problem forever. Why? The question hung in the air between them, heavier than any physical attack. Why had Thanos pursued a solution he knew was temporary? Why had he devoted his existence to a plan that required eternal repetition? The Mad Titan stood silent, confronting truths he'd buried beneath centuries of conviction and action. Because doing something, even imperfectly, felt preferable to accepting inevitable collapse, he finally said. Because I'd watched my own world die while philosophers debated better solutions that never came. Because I couldn't accept that all my power, all my will, couldn't prevent the suffering I'd witnessed. That's actually kind of sad, Goku said, and the genuine empathy in his voice was somehow worse than condemnation would have been. Beerus finished his dessert and stood, stretching with feline grace. He walked up to Thanos until they stood face to face. The god barely reaching the Titan's chest, but radiating power that made the size difference irrelevant. Here's what's going to happen. Titan, you're going to stay in Universe 7 for a while. You'll observe how we handle universal threats, how civilizations grow and adapt, how warriors protect without conquering. Whis will supervise to ensure you don't try anything stupid like gathering our Super Dragon Balls. And if, after seeing how we do things, you still think your method is superior. His eyes flashed with destructive energy. Then I'll Hakai you myself and save the multiverse the trouble of dealing with your philosophy. And if I refuse this supervision? Thanos asked, though he already knew the answer. Then I Hakai you right now and we skip the educational portion, Beerus replied cheerfully. Your choice. Thanos looked at the god of destruction, then at the two Saiyans who'd challenged his beliefs with unexpected philosophical depth, then at the angel who'd casually explained solutions to problems the Mad Titan had considered unsolvable. Pride warred with pragmatism, certainty with growing doubt, conviction with the terrible possibility that his entire existence had been built on flawed assumptions. I accept your terms, he said finally. I will observe and learn what this universe has that mine apparently lacked. Excellent. Whis clapped his hands together. This should prove most educational for everyone involved. Goku, Vegeta, I trust you'll assist in showing our guest around Earth. Perhaps introduce him to some of your friends. Let him see how your civilization functions. As long as he doesn't try to blow anything up, Goku said, though his tone suggested he was already planning training scenarios. Hey, Thanos, you ever fight in a tournament? Because the World Martial Arts Tournament is coming up, and if you want to understand our universe's fighting styles, Kakarot, are you seriously inviting a being who planned to erase half of all life to a sporting event? Vegeta demanded. Well, yeah, Goku replied, as if it was obvious. Best way to understand someone is to fight them. Plus, if he's staying in our universe, he should learn our techniques. Maybe we could even... No, Vegeta and Beerus said simultaneously. You can't recruit every potentially genocidal being you meet for training purposes, Vegeta continued. I've recruited Frieza, Goku pointed out. That was different. That was... Vegeta stopped, clearly realizing he had no good counterargument. That was arguably worse. Fine. But if he destroys any cities, I'm blaming you. Thanos watched this byplay with fascination. The casual friendship between sworn protectors and a god of destruction, the easy banter about recruiting genocidal beings, the genuine belief that fighting together could bridge philosophical gulfs. This universe operated on principles he'd never encountered. Not naivety, but a different kind of wisdom. Not weakness, but strength, channeled toward growth, rather than culling. Perhaps there were lessons here after all. As Whis prepared to transport them back to Earth, Beerus called out one final warning. Titan. In this universe, we believe in redemption and second chances. Piccolo was a demon king. Vegeta served a galactic tyrant. Even Majin Buu nearly destroyed everything. They all got better through bonds and fighting alongside allies. But his expression turned deadly serious. That chance requires genuine willingness to change. If you're just pretending while planning your universal balance scheme, I'll know. And Hakai is permanent. There's no Dragon Ball wish that reverses it. Understand? I understand, Thanos replied. And I give you my word, I will genuinely observe and consider what this universe has to teach before acting on any of my previous convictions. Good enough, Beerus said, already settling back into his lounging position. Now all of you go away. You've interrupted enough of my nap. The light of Whis' transportation enveloped them again, and as Earth reformed around them, Thanos found himself in the unusual position of following rather than leading. Goku immediately started chattering about training schedules and technique exchanges, while Vegeta muttered darkly about supervision duties. But beneath the surface annoyance, the Mad Titan detected something surprising: genuine willingness to give him the chance I continue Beerus had promised. A universe of second chances and constant growth. Of warriors who protected rather than conquered. Of gods who supervised rather than dictated. Of Dragon Balls that resurrected the dead, yet somehow didn't collapse reality through consequence-free existence. Thanos had come seeking to understand this universe's weakness. Instead, he'd been forced to confront the possibility that his own philosophy might be the flawed one. The question now was whether he possessed the strength to admit that and change accordingly. They materialized at Capsule Corporation's main courtyard, where Bulma had already assembled what looked like a full sensor array pointed at the sky. She glanced up from her tablet as they appeared, her expression cycling through relief, annoyance, and scientific curiosity in rapid succession. Oh good, you're all still alive, Vegeta. Next time warn me before Whis teleports you to meet with a god of destruction. I had to call Trunks and tell him his father might get erased before dinner. I was never in danger, Vegeta said stiffly, though his wife's concern clearly pleased him despite his tone. Right, because conversations with Beerus are always safe, Bulma replied sarcastically. She turned her attention to Thanos, and the Mad Titan noted her fear was carefully controlled, channeled into scientific assessment rather than panic. So, purple giant from another dimension. Beerus didn't kill you. which means you're either surprisingly reasonable or surprisingly useful. Which is it? Perhaps both, Thanos replied. Your husband suggested I observe Earth's approach to civilization management. I find myself curious about technologies that solve problems I considered unsolvable. Bulma's eyebrows rose. Did Vegeta just accidentally recruit someone through bragging about Earth tech? That's new. She tapped something on her tablet, and holographic displays sprang to life around them, showing schematics for devices Thanos couldn't immediately identify. Fine. You want to understand our approach? Let's start with basic resource management. See this? Dino Cap technology. We can compress and store virtually anything: vehicles, buildings, even entire laboratories in pocket dimensions accessible through portable capsules. Storage space limitations? Solved. Transportation costs? Eliminated. Resource distribution bottlenecks? Gone. Thanos studied the schematics with genuine interest. Dimensional compression at portable scale. In my reality, such technology existed only as experimental prototypes requiring massive infrastructure. You've miniaturized it to consumer products? Consumer products invented by my father 40 years ago, Bulma said with undisguised pride. We've refined it since then. Current gen can store up to 500 cubic meters in a capsule the size of your thumb. And before you ask, no, you can't have one to study. I don't trust you yet. A reasonable position, Thanos acknowledged. He turned to Goku, who was already raiding a nearby vending machine for snacks. This technology alone would eliminate half the resource crises I witnessed in my reality. Yet you treat it as commonplace. Because it is, Goku said around a mouthful of what appeared to be dried squid. Bulma's family has been making this stuff since before I was born. Everyone uses capsule tech. It's just normal. Advanced dimensional compression technology, treated as mundane consumer convenience. Thanos felt his carefully constructed worldview continuing to crack. In his universe, such innovations would have been jealously guarded, weaponized, controlled by the powerful few. Here, it was sold in vending machines alongside snack food. Before he could process this further, a new presence appeared, not through teleportation, but through the simple act of walking around the corner. A tall Namekian in white robes and a weighted purple gi, his expression carrying the calm assessment of someone who'd seen too much to be easily surprised. Piccolo's antennae twitched as he took in Thanos' appearance, and his eyes narrowed fractionally. So this is our dimensional visitor, Piccolo said, his voice carrying a depth that suggested multiple lifetimes of experience. Goku called me, said we had someone who needed to understand Earth's perspective before deciding whether to kill half the universe. An oversimplification, but essentially accurate, Thanos replied, studying this green-skinned being with interest. You're not human, yet you defend their world. Why? Piccolo's expression didn't change. Because I was born to destroy it and learn better. My father, my previous incarnation, was the Demon King who terrorized Earth. I was created as his reincarnation, programmed to hate humans and continue his conquest. Instead, I met a warrior who showed me there was more to strength than domination. His gaze flicked to Goku. And a child who needed training desperately enough that I had to become someone worth learning from. Redemption through necessity, Thanos observed. You change because circumstances forced evolution, not through philosophical revelation. I changed because I was given the chance to change, Piccolo corrected. And because people around me believed I could be more than what I was created to be. That's the difference in this universe, Titan. We don't write people off as irredeemable. We give them the space to grow and we fight like hell to protect that space when it's threatened. Another arrival, this time in a blur of motion that made even Thanos' enhanced reflexes struggle to track. Android 17 appeared, dressed in his Ranger uniform, his expression carrying the casual confidence of someone who knew exactly how dangerous he was. Heard we had a cosmic philosopher visiting. Thought I'd introduce myself. I'm one of those reformed villains everyone keeps using as evidence that your murder half the universe plan is stupid. You're artificial, Thanos noted, sensing the technological signature beneath the organic appearance. Yet you possess this key energy they speak of. Fascinating. Infinite energy model, 17 said with a slight smirk. I was built by a mad scientist to kill Goku. Ended up winning a multiversal tournament and using the prize wish to resurrect a bunch of erased universes instead. Funny how things work out when you don't follow your original programming. Thanos found himself surrounded by living refutations of his philosophy. A Saiyan prince who'd served a tyrant, a Namekian born as a demon king, an artificial being programmed for murder, all reformed, all powerful, all genuinely committed to protection rather than conquest. The statistical improbability of so many successful redemptions suggested either unprecedented luck or something fundamentally different about this universe's approach to consciousness and choice. Lord Beerus suggested you observe Earth's civilization, we said, appearing beside them with his usual casual grace. He'd apparently been present the entire time, invisible and listening. Perhaps we should arrange a tour? Show you various aspects of how this world functions despite all the apocalypses it's endured? How many apocalypses? Thanos asked, genuinely curious. Goku started counting on his fingers again. Well, there was Piccolo Daimao. Then the Saiyans invaded. Then Frieza came to Earth that one time. Cell held a tournament where he was gonna blow up the world if he won. Boo definitely destroyed Earth at least once. Beerus almost did it over pudding. Frieza came back and blew it up again. Zamasu destroyed the future timeline, and the Tournament of Power would have erased us if we'd lost. He paused. Am I forgetting any? Red Ribbon Army twice, Piccolo added. Garlic Jr. tried to trap everyone in the dead zone. Broly showed up a couple times. That metal cooler incident. Lord Slug attempted planetary conquest. Bojack's prison broke. Sufficient, Thanos interrupted, his tactical mind racing. Your world has faced over a dozen extinction-level events and recovered from each one. The Dragon Balls resurrect populations. Your technology rebuilds infrastructure. But what prevents the trauma? The societal collapse that should follow repeated apocalyptic devastation. We got used to it? Goku offered with a shrug that was either profound wisdom or complete obliviousness. Thanos genuinely couldn't tell which. Bulma snorted. What Goku means is that Earth's population has developed remarkable resilience. After the first few times the world nearly ended, people adapted. We've got emergency protocols, shelters that can be deployed via capsule technology, medical advances that can handle everything from ki blast wounds to radiation poisoning. Plus, knowing that the Dragon Balls can fix things reduces panic. People trust that the Z fighters will handle threats. Faith in warriors rather than governmental authority, Thanos observed. A society built on personal power rather than institutional structure. That should collapse into warlordism and chaos. Should, but doesn't, Vegeta said, crossing his arms. Because the strongest among us choose to protect rather than rule. Kakarot could declare himself Earth's emperor tomorrow. His power dwarfs any military force this planet could muster. Instead, he lives in a house on a mountain and farms radishes, which are really good this season. Goku added enthusiastically. Chi-Chi made this great stew last week with the point, Kakarot, Vegeta interrupted. Is that power without the desire to dominate creates stability your philosophy can't account for? You assume the strong will always seek to control the weak. This universe proves otherwise. Thanos wanted to argue, to point out the exceptions and statistical anomalies, but evidence surrounded him. Goku, with godly power, excited about vegetable stew. Vegeta, a prince and warrior, choosing to live with his family rather than conquer. Piccolo, born as a demon king, now meditating and training the next generation. Android 17, built as a weapon, working as a nature preserve ranger. Show me more, Thanos said finally. Not just your warriors and technology. Show me your civilization. If Earth has survived this many apocalypses and maintained social cohesion, I need to understand the mechanisms beyond Dragon Ball Resurrection. Whis clapped his hands together delightedly. Oh, wonderful! A proper anthropological survey. I do love these. Let's see, we should visit a city center to observe daily life. Perhaps a school to see educational approaches. Definitely a restaurant because I'm feeling peckish. And we should make sure Frieza doesn't hear about this? Piccolo interrupted, his expression darkening. A being from another universe who philosophically aligns with conquest and elimination? Frieza would either try to recruit him or eliminate him as competition. Frieza, Thanos repeated, recognizing the name from earlier conversations. The galactic tyrant you mentioned. He still operates in this universe, despite your power to stop him? He's useful, Goku said, his tone suggesting he wasn't entirely comfortable with this fact. When we needed someone for the Tournament of Power, he was strong enough to help and had enough at stake to cooperate. Plus, he can't really threaten Earth anymore. We're way stronger than him now. So you allow a known tyrant to continue existing because he's occasionally useful, Thanos said slowly. Yet you challenge my philosophy of preemptive elimination. Explain the distinction. Vegeta's jaw tightened. The distinction is that Frieza's evil is contained. He operates in space, rebuilding his empire, but he knows that if he threatens Earth again, we'll kill him permanently. It's mutually assured destruction he leaves our world alone. We don't hunt him across the galaxy. And that's better than simply ending the threat? Thanos pressed. Yes, Goku said firmly. Because maybe someday he'll change. I mean, probably not, Frieza's pretty set in his ways. But Vegeta used to work for him and do terrible things. And now Vegeta's saved the universe multiple times. If we'd killed Vegeta back during the Saiyan invasion because of what he might do, all those people he saved would be dead. Your optimism borders on foolishness, Thanos said, but his tone lacked its earlier certainty. It's only foolish if it doesn't work, Piccolo replied. And we're all still here, aren't we? Before Thanos could formulate a response, a new energy signature appeared not through teleportation but through a ship descending from orbit. The craft was sleek, advanced, clearly designed for rapid atmospheric entry. It touched down in Capsule Corp's landing area, and the boarding ramp extended with pneumatic precision. A figure emerged that made every warrior present tense reflexively. White and purple bioarmor, a tail swishing with predatory grace, and that unmistakable aura of casual cruelty poorly masked by civilized pretense. Frieza descended the ramp with theatrical slowness, his red eyes immediately locking onto the gathering. Well, Frieza said, his voice carrying sophisticated malice. I sensed an unusual energy signature and simply had to investigate. Goku, Vegeta, always a pleasure. And Whis tell Lord Beerus I've been very well behaved lately. But this. His gaze fixed on Thanos with predatory interest. This is something entirely new. A being whose power doesn't register as key. Dimensions practically bleeding from your arrival signature. And that delicious aura of someone who's conquered extensively. Tell me, Purple Giant, are you a potential ally or simply my next challenging opponent? Thanos assessed Frieza with the same tactical precision he'd applied to every being he'd encountered. Powerful. Certainly the key signature suggested someone who could challenge planetary-scale threats. But more than that, here was a being who operated exactly as Thanos had always assumed the powerful would. Seeking control, viewing others as tools or obstacles, barely containing his desire to dominate. Here was a mirror of what Thanos might have become if he pursued power for its own sake, rather than philosophical necessity. I am Thanos of Titan, he replied carefully, and I am currently observing this universe's approach to power and balance. Whether we become allies or opponents depends entirely on what I learn from that observation. Frieza's smile widened, revealing too many teeth. How wonderfully diplomatic. You know, I attempted something similar to what I hear you're famous for, restructuring universal power dynamics to favor a more efficient order. These scions objected rather strenuously. His tail flicked with barely contained irritation. Perhaps we should discuss our respective philosophies over drinks? I'm certain we'd find much common ground. No, Vegeta said flatly, stepping between Frieza and Thanos. Absolutely not. We're not letting you corrupt an already problematic philosophy with your sadistic garbage. Corrupt? I prefer refine, Frieza replied smoothly. After all, if one is going to eliminate populations for universal balance, why not ensure that process also consolidates power structures and eliminates future resistance? Efficiency, dear Vegeta. Something you've never quite mastered. See, this is exactly the problem with your philosophy, Goku said to Thanos, his voice harder than before. People like Frieza take ideas about balance and necessary sacrifice and twist them into excuses for doing whatever they want. That's why we don't make those kinds of decisions. Power to protect is different from power to control. Thanos watched the confrontation with growing understanding. Frieza represented the inevitable corruption of his philosophy, someone who would use rhetoric about balance and necessity as justification for personal cruelty and domination. The Mad Titan had always told himself his goals were pure, selfless even, requiring personal sacrifice to achieve universal benefit. But what if warriors like Goku and Vegeta were right? What if such philosophies, no matter how sincerely begun, always devolved into what Frieza represented? I have no interest in your alliance, Frieza, Thanos said finally. Your goals are transparent power for power's sake, dressed in philosophical justification. I sought balance. You seek control. They are not the same. Frieza's expression flickered with genuine surprise before settling back into amused contempt. Oh, how delightfully self-righteous. Very well. Enjoy your moral education with the monkey warriors. But when you tire of their naive optimism and require someone who understands that power must be exercised rather than restrained, you know where to find me. He turned, heading back toward his ship. Do give Lord Beerus my regards, Whis. Tell him I'll be very far away from Earth, being exceptionally well behaved. As Frieza's ship lifted off, Thanos found himself disturbed by the interaction. The galactic tyrant had seen kinship in Thanos' philosophy, had assumed they would naturally align. If his quest for universal balance looked identical to someone like Frieza's naked power seeking from the outside, what did that say about the Mad Titan's true motivations? That was Frieza, Goku said unnecessarily. And yeah, He's exactly why we have to be careful about power. Give someone a philosophy that says they get to decide who lives and dies, and they'll find ways to make it serve whatever they want. Thanos nodded slowly, the weight of realization settling over him like physical burden. I begin to understand your point. Abstract philosophies become concrete actions, and actions reveal true intentions regardless of stated goals. Wow, that was almost profound, Piccolo said dryly. There might be hope for you yet. We suggested they begin the tour at West City's commercial district, away from Capsule Corporation's high-security zones, and into the heart of Earth's everyday civilization. They traveled by hovercar. Bulma insisted on driving despite Vegeta's protests, and Thanos found himself squeezed into a vehicle clearly not designed for beings of his stature. Goku had simply flown alongside, waving cheerfully through the window at startled citizens who'd apparently grown accustomed to seeing martial artists soaring through their airways. The city itself was a study in contradictions that fascinated Thanos' analytical mind. Towering skyscrapers constructed from materials that registered as conventional steel and concrete, yet interspersed with buildings that clearly incorporated capsule technology and energy systems beyond standard electrical infrastructure. Hovercars shared airspace with more traditional ground vehicles, suggesting economic stratification despite technological availability. People walk streets, wearing everything from business suits to martial arts gi, some with power levels that registered on Thanos' combat instincts, while most remained completely ordinary humans. This is the financial district, Bulma narrated as she navigated through traffic with aggressive confidence that made even Thanos reflexively grip his seat. Banks, corporate headquarters, stock exchanges, all the boring stuff that keeps civilization running when we're not being invaded by aliens or fighting gods. You maintain financial markets despite having wish-granting artifacts that could theoretically eliminate scarcity? Thanos asked, genuinely puzzled. Why preserve economic systems that exist solely to manage limited resources when your Dragon Balls could create abundance? Because the Dragon Balls can't actually do everything, Bulma explained, swerving around a slower vehicle. They can resurrect people, sure, and grant certain specific wishes, but they can't fundamentally restructure how an entire civilization functions. Shenron can't make everyone suddenly wealthy or eliminate the concept of work. Plus, there are limits. Certain wishes exceed even dragon powers, and you can only use them once per year for Earth's set. Piccolo, who joined them in the hovering car's spacious back seat, added, "The Dragon Balls are emergency measures, not daily problem solvers. If people started relying on them for everything, what happens when an enemy destroys them? Or when a wish is used for something else urgent? Societies need to function without magical backup." They landed in a public plaza where a monument stood, a statue depicting warriors in combat stances, defending civilians behind them. Thanos recognized Goku's distinctive hair in one figure, Gohan's scholarly stance in another. The plaque read, "In memory of those who fell defending Earth during the Cell Games. May their sacrifice remind us that strength exists to protect, never to oppress." "We put these up after major events," Goku said, landing beside them with his usual casual grace. "Reminds people what happened and why we fight. Keeps the memory alive for folks who weren't there." Thanos studied the monument, noting the specific language. Strength exists to protect, never to oppress. A civilization that had embedded that philosophy into public memorials, making it foundational myth rather than individual choice. In his universe, monuments celebrated conquerors and dominators. Here, they honored defenders. Citizens moved through the plaza, many glancing at their group with recognition. Some waved at Goku, who waved back enthusiastically. Others gave Vegeta respectful nods that the prince acknowledged with minimal response. A few children ran up asking for autographs, which Goku provided happily while Vegeta looked deeply uncomfortable. "They're not afraid of you," Thanos observed. Citizens living in a world that's faced repeated apocalypse, approaching warriors powerful enough to destroy planets as if they were celebrities rather than threats. "Because they are celebrities," Bulma said pragmatically. "The Z fighters have saved the world enough times that people know them by name. There are action figures, video games, entire martial arts schools claiming to teach Goku-style techniques. When you repeatedly prevent extinction, you get brand recognition." A young girl, perhaps 8 years old, approached Thanos directly. She carried a data pad and looked up at the massive purple titan without apparent fear. "Are you a new fighter? You look really strong. Are you going to enter the world tournament?" Thanos stared at this small human child who addressed him as casually as she might any adult. In his universe, children fled from his presence. Here, this girl saw a powerful warrior and immediately contextualized him within her cultural framework of tournaments and celebrity fighters. "I am visiting," Thanos said carefully, "observing your world's approach to strength and power." "Oh, like a student exchange program," the girl said brightly. "We learned about those in school. Different cultures teaching each other stuff. That's cool. I hope you learn lots." She waved and ran back to her parents, who smiled apologetically at the group before continuing their afternoon. Thanos watched her go, something uncomfortable shifting in his chest. That child lived in a world that had nearly ended multiple times. Yet she approached unknown powerful beings with curiosity rather than terror. What kind of civilization created that level of security despite repeated catastrophic threats? "Let's visit a school," Whis suggested, his staff glowing as he consulted some kind of tracking mechanism. "Orange Star High School. Specifically, that's where Gohan attended, and it has an excellent reputation for adapting curriculum after each global incident. Very forward-thinking administration." They arrived at the school during afternoon classes, and Whis' angelic authority apparently smoothed over any administrative concerns about unannounced visitors. The principal, a nervous man who kept adjusting his glasses, led them through hallways decorated with student artwork and achievement boards. Thanos noted the diversity of subjects, standard academics alongside courses titled Post-Crisis Counseling, Practical Key Detection, and Emergency Evacuation Procedures. "After the Cell Games, we restructured our entire curriculum," the principal explained, leading them past classrooms where students took notes and asked questions of teachers. "We realized that teaching children as if apocalyptic events were impossible was doing them a disservice. Now, we integrate disaster preparedness, basic awareness of how warriors protect Earth, and psychological resilience training." "You educate children to expect apocalypse?" Thanos asked, disturbed by the implications. "We educate them to understand their world realistically while maintaining hope," the principal corrected. "Yes, terrible things have happened and likely will again. But we also teach that people like Mr. Sun and his friends work constantly to prevent those disasters, and that ordinary citizens have roles in supporting and evacuating during crises. Knowledge reduces panic, They observed a history class discussing the Tournament of Power. The teacher, a young woman with evident passion for her subject, explained how 8 universes had fought to prevent erasure, how Universe 7's team had included reformed villains and unlikely allies, and how the final wish had restored all erased universes rather than claiming selfish reward. That tournament shows us what Earthlings believe, the teacher was saying. That cooperation surpasses individual power, that redemption is always possible, and that strength should serve compassion rather than ambition. Now, can anyone explain why Android 17's sacrifice was particularly significant? A student raised their hand. Because he was programmed to kill Mr. Sun, but he chose to save everyone instead? So it shows that what you were created for doesn't determine who you become? Exactly, the teacher beamed. We're not defined by our origins or initial purposes. We're defined by the choices we make when it matters most. Thanos felt that uncomfortable sensation intensifying. These children were being explicitly taught the philosophical opposite of everything he believed, not through propaganda or indoctrination, but through examining actual historical events and drawing conclusions about values and choices. And more disturbingly, those conclusions were supported by overwhelming evidence. Villains who'd reformed, warriors who chose protection over domination, civilizations that survived through cooperation rather than culling. In the hallway, they encountered a group of students practicing basic key techniques under a teacher's supervision. Small energy spheres flickered in inexperienced hands, most barely maintaining cohesion for more than a few seconds. The power levels were minuscule compared to warriors like Goku, but the fact that ordinary high school students were learning energy manipulation at all suggested how deeply martial philosophy had integrated into this culture. Basic key fundamentals, the instructor explained when she noticed their observation. We can't make everyone a Z-fighter, obviously, but teaching kids to sense and minimally manipulate their life energy has practical benefits. Better body awareness, enhanced reaction times, and in emergencies, the ability to perform basic techniques like flight or energy detection. Plus, it gives them appreciation for how difficult true mastery is. One student's key sphere suddenly destabilized, exploding in a harmless flash. The other students laughed, but not mockingly. The sound carried shared experience and encouragement. The instructor simply smiled and corrected the student's hand position. Remember, key responds to emotional state. Frustration makes it unstable. Deep breath, try again. You teach children power, Thanos said, knowing that some will misuse it. Yet you don't restrict access or attempt to control who develops martial abilities. Can't really restrict it, the instructor shrugged. Key is life energy, everyone has it. We can either teach proper control and philosophy alongside technique, or let kids figure it out themselves and potentially hurt someone. Education is always preferable to ignorance. They continued through the school, observing more classes, more children learning to live in a world where gods walked among mortals and apocalypses required scheduled drills rather than existential dread. Thanos saw counseling offices where students discussed trauma from past events, art rooms where children processed fear and hope through creative expression, and a gymnasium where the martial arts club practiced katas that poorly imitated techniques they'd seen Z-fighters use in televised battles. This was adaptation, not passive acceptance or denial, but active integration of harsh realities into functional social structures. Earth civilization hadn't survived repeated apocalypses through luck or Dragon Ball resurrections alone. They'd survived because they'd collectively chosen to understand their world's dangers, trust their protectors, and continue building despite knowing destruction could return at any moment. As they exited the school, Goku turned to Thanos with that innocent yet penetrating gaze. "See? People here aren't weak just because they can't blow up planets. They're strong in different ways. They keep going even after watching their world nearly end. That takes courage your philosophy doesn't account for." "My philosophy accounts for survival," Thanos said, but his voice carried less conviction. "For preventing the suffering that leads to civilizational collapse." "No," Vegeta said coldly. "Your philosophy accounts for making yourself feel better about failing to save your own world. You decided that if you couldn't prevent collapse through creation, you'd prevent it through destruction instead. It's cowardice dressed as necessity." The words hit harder than any physical blow Thanos had endured. Cowardice. Was that what it had been? Had his entire crusade been elaborate avoidance of the true work, not culling populations, but building systems that allowed them to survive and thrive despite resource constraints? Before he could formulate a response, Piccolo's head snapped up, his antennae twitching. "Something's wrong, I'm sensing." The sky darkened despite the afternoon sun. A massive energy signature appeared overhead, one that made even Thanos' considerable power seem pedestrian by comparison. The clouds parted, and a figure descended surrounded by golden aura, another being from the universe's pantheon of cosmic entities. Supreme Kai-Shin materialized beside them, his youthful appearance belying the ancient authority in his eyes. "Forgive the dramatic entrance, but we have a situation. The Grand Minister has called an emergency meeting regarding the dimensional breach that allowed this one," he gestured at Thanos, "to enter Universe 7. Apparently, other entities from his reality are attempting to exploit the same weakness." Whis' expression turned serious for the first time since Thanos had met him. "That's concerning. What kind of entities?" "We're still determining specifics," Supreme Kai said, his voice tight with worry. "But the energy signatures are substantial. Beings of considerable power seeking entry to our universe, potentially drawn by the same cosmic imbalance that pulled the Titan through. Lord Beerus has been awakened and is displeased." Goku's expression shifted from friendly curiosity to combat readiness in an instant. "How strong are we talking?" "Strong enough that the Grand Minister suggests assembling multiple universes teams if they successfully breach," Supreme Kai replied. "This could escalate beyond Universe 7's ability to handle independently." Thanos felt cold certainty settling over him. He knew exactly what kind of entities would be following him through dimensional barriers. Beings who'd been hunting him across realities, seeking either to claim the knowledge he'd gathered about the Infinity Stones, or to ensure his philosophy never spread beyond his home universe. Cosmic abstracts, eternal hunters, perhaps even Death herself taking interest in this new reality. He'd brought danger to the universe he'd been studying. His presence had made Universe 7 a target. "This is my fault," Thanos said quietly. "My crossing weakened the dimensional barrier sufficiently that others could follow. Whatever comes through is doing so because of me." "Yes," Vegeta agreed bluntly, "which means you're going to help us deal with it. You wanted to observe how we handle universal threats? Congratulations, you're about to get a practical demonstration." The Tournament of Titans began not in an arena, but in orbit above Earth. Goku had suggested they take the fight away from populated areas. And even Thanos acknowledged the strategic wisdom in establishing a battlefield where collateral damage wouldn't mean civilian casualties. Supreme Kai had provided transportation, teleporting the assembled warriors to a pre-prepared location, a small moon that Universe 7 kept specifically for situations requiring intense combat away from inhabited worlds. The moon's surface was barren rock and dust, its gravity adjusted through Supreme Kai's powers to match Earth's for consistency. Energy barriers erected by Whis surrounded a massive circular arena carved directly into the lunar surface, boundaries marked with glowing sigils that would contain all but the most catastrophic attacks. In the distance, a viewing platform hovered where Bulma, Supreme Kai, and other non-combatants could observe safely. Thanos stood at one end of the arena, his armor reflecting the harsh light from the distant sun. Across from him, the assembled Z-fighters prepared themselves not all at once, but in sequence. This wasn't an execution or a judgment. It was, as Goku had enthusiastically explained, a proper tournament to test Thanos' combat philosophy against Earth's defenders. The rules are simple, Whis explained, hovering above the arena with his staff glowing. A series of one-on-one matches. Thanos will face opponents sequentially until either he's defeated or all challengers have been exhausted. Victory is achieved through ring out, knockout, or surrender. No Killing Lord Beerus was very specific about that limitation. His smile suggested terrible things would happen if that rule were violated. And Thanos? This will give you the opportunity to understand not just our philosophy, but how we fight when that philosophy is tested. I accept these terms, Thanos said. His tactical mind was already assessing opponents, calculating power levels, developing strategies for each potential matchup. Piccolo first. Most likely, the Namekian carried himself like a strategic thinker who would probe for weaknesses. Then perhaps the android for endurance testing. Gohan represented untapped potential that might manifest under pressure. Vegeta's pride would demand he fight near the end, wanting to prove Saiyan superiority. And Goku would undoubtedly claim the final position, eager for the strongest possible challenge. First match, Whis announced. Piccolo versus Thanos. Combatants, take your positions. Piccolo stepped into the arena, his weighted training clothing hitting the ground with tremendous crashes as he removed each piece. The Namekian's power level spiked immediately. He'd been suppressing it significantly under that training gear. His white cape billowed despite the airless environment as his ki provided its own atmospheric pressure. I'm not going to lecture you about philosophy, Piccolo said, settling into a combat stance that spoke of perfect body control and centuries of martial experience. Goku and Vegeta can handle that. I just want to see if your combat tactics match your strategic rhetoric. Thanos lowered into his own stance, one developed across thousands of battlefields against countless opponents. Then let us begin, Namekian. Show me how warriors of Earth translate philosophy into action. Whis' staff flashed. Begin. Piccolo moved first, disappearing in a burst of speed that defied his size. He reappeared at Thanos' left flank, his fist already accelerating toward the Titan's ribs in a strike calculated to test durability. Thanos pivoted, catching the blow on his armored forearm with a crack that echoed across the lunar surface. The impact created a shockwave that sent dust billowing outward. and Thanos felt the force behind it, planetary scale strength compressed into precise technique. The Mad Titan countered with a straight punch aimed at Piccolo's chest, but the Namekian had already twisted away, his flexibility allowing him to contort his body at impossible angles. Energy crackled around Piccolo's fingertips as he thrust both hands forward, and twin key blasts screamed toward Thanos at point-blank range. Thanos raised his arms, tanking the blasts directly. The energy washed over his body, burning but not breaching his natural durability. Through the smoke and light, he charged forward, closing distance with tactical precision. If Piccolo preferred ranged combat and mobility, then the solution was to eliminate that space and force close quarters engagement. But Piccolo was already 3 steps ahead. As Thanos burst through the dissipating energy, the Namekian extended his arm, literally extended it, the limb stretching to impossible length as it wrapped around Thanos' legs. With a sharp twist, Piccolo yanked, attempting to destabilize the Titan's charge. Thanos felt himself going down and made the split-second tactical decision to flow with it rather than resist. He hit the lunar surface hard, cratering the rock beneath him, but immediately used the momentum to roll backward and launch himself away from Piccolo's follow-up attack. The Nami-Continuikian's energy blade, a key-formed weapon extending from his other hand, slashed through the space Thanos' neck had occupied a moment before. Fast adaptation, Piccolo acknowledged, his arm snapping back to normal length. Most opponents panic when their footing gets disrupted. You turned a disadvantage into repositioning. I have fought beings who manipulate space itself, Thanos replied, already circling for his next approach. Limb extension is creative, but hardly unprecedented. They clashed again, and this time, the exchange was pure martial skill. Piccolo's Namekian fighting style emphasized fluid transitions and unexpected angles, while Thanos' technique focused on overwhelming force applied through perfect positioning. Blows were exchanged faster than human eyes could follow, blocked, countered, redirected, absorbed. Neither warrior gave ground unnecessarily, and neither wasted energy on flashy techniques without tactical purpose. Then Piccolo did something unexpected. He created an afterimage, a technique that left a key-form decoy while his real body moved elsewhere. Thanos saw through it immediately based on energy signature differences. But that moment of recognition was exactly what Piccolo needed. The Namekian appeared directly above. Both hands pointed down, energy concentrated to a single point. Special beam cannon. The spiraling drill of energy screamed downward, faster than sound, faster than most beings could react. Thanos threw himself sideways, the attack missing his center mass by inches and carving a trench through the lunar surface where he'd stood. The technique continued drilling deep into the moon's core, demonstrating power that could have pierced any conventional defense. Thanos rolled to his feet, reassessing. That attack had been genuinely dangerous, not just powerful, but focused with surgical precision. A direct hit would have severely injured even his considerable durability. The Namekian wasn't testing anymore. This was real combat. Impressive, Thanos admitted. That technique could kill me with proper placement. It's killed stronger beings, Piccolo replied, already preparing another attack. That's the thing about Earth's martial arts. We don't just hit harder. We find weaknesses and exploit them with maximum efficiency. The next exchange was even more intense. Piccolo bombarded Thanos with ki blasts from multiple angles, using each explosion as cover to reposition and strike from unexpected vectors. His fighting style was less about overwhelming power and more about perfect tactical execution, finding openings, exploiting them, and never committing fully until certain of success. Thanos found himself genuinely challenged. The Namekian's power level wasn't individually overwhelming, but his technique and tactical acumen turned that power into something far more dangerous. This was a warrior who'd survived through skill and intelligence, who'd mastered the art of fighting opponents stronger than himself through superior strategy. But Thanos of Titan had not conquered 1,000 worlds through power alone. He'd studied warfare as art and science, developed techniques across countless combat scenarios, and learned to turn enemy strengths into exploitable weaknesses. If Piccolo's advantage was tactical flexibility and perfect technique, then the solution was to create situations where technique became irrelevant through overwhelming force application. The Titan charged directly through Piccolo's next barrage, accepting the ki blast impacts across his arms and chest. The Namekian's eyes widened fractionally, recognizing the tactic but unable to adjust quickly enough. Thanos closed the distance, and his fist crashed into Piccolo's guard with force that sent the Green Warrior skidding backward across Lunar Rock. Before Piccolo could recover, Thanos pressed his advantage. A combination of precise strikes targeting joints and pressure points, forcing the Namekian into defensive posture. Each blow was calculated not to cause maximum damage immediately, but to limit mobility, restrict options, corner the tactical fighter into situations where strategy couldn't overcome physical disadvantage. Piccolo's Namekian physiology gave him advantages. He could regenerate lost limbs, survive damage that would kill most beings. But regeneration required energy and concentration, resources that couldn't be spent on offense or defense simultaneously. Thanos knew this principle well. Resource management was fundamental to extended combat. The breakthrough came when Piccolo attempted another special beam cannon. The charge time was minimal, barely a second, but that moment of concentration was the opening Thanos needed. He closed distance impossibly fast and slammed both fists down on Piccolo's arms, disrupting the energy concentration and causing the technique to dissipate harmlessly. Then Thanos' headbutt caught Piccolo directly, the impact sending the Namekian crashing backward into the arena boundary. Piccolo hit the energy barrier with a flash of light, the impact registering as significant damage. He slumped to one knee, breathing heavily, green blood trickling from a split lip. "Yield," Thanos said, his tone carrying respect rather than mockery. "You fought with exceptional skill, Namekian, but resource attrition has decided this bout." Piccolo looked up, assessing his remaining energy reserves, calculating whether he could continue. Then, with visible frustration but also tactical pragmatism, he straightened and nodded. "I yield. You're better than I expected, Titan. Let's see how you handle the next challenge." Whis' voice rang out across the arena. First match concluded. Victory. Thanos. Combatants, exit the arena for recovery period. Next match begins in 5 minutes. As Piccolo departed, accepting a Senzu beam from the observation platform, Android 17 descended into the arena. The artificial being looked completely relaxed, his ranger uniform somehow spotless despite the lunar environment. His smirk suggested confidence bordering on arrogance. "So you beat Piccolo," 17 said casually. "Good warm-up, I'm sure. But here's the thing about me. I don't get tired." Infinite energy model. You can't win through attrition against someone who literally cannot run out of stamina. Thanos studied this new opponent, his tactical mind immediately recognizing the challenge. An endurance fighter with unlimited resources, the perfect counter to his previous strategy. This would require a different approach entirely. "Then, I will need to achieve victory through technique rather than attrition," Thanos replied. "An interesting puzzle. Glad you think so," 17 said, his energy barrier flickering to life around him. "Let's see how many puzzles you can solve before you can't lift your arms anymore." Whis' staff flashed again. Second match. Android 17 versus Thanos. Begin. The android attacked immediately. No warming up or probing strikes. His assault was relentless. Ki blasts from multiple angles, physical strikes integrated seamlessly with energy attacks. Never stopping, never slowing, pressing advantage through sheer volume of force. And behind every technique was the knowledge that he could maintain this pace indefinitely. Thanos found himself on the defensive for the first time. Every block, every counter, every movement cost him energy, while the android paid no price. Time became the enemy. The longer this fight continued, the more the balance shifted toward his opponent. He needed to end this quickly, efficiently, before fatigue accumulated. He began analyzing Android 17's pattern, looking for the predictability that always emerged during extended combat. Beings fell into rhythms unconsciously, attack sequences that felt natural, combinations that flowed instinctively. Infinite stamina was a tremendous advantage, but it didn't grant infinite creativity or perfect unpredictability. There, a tell. The android's left hand moved fractionally before initiating energy barriers. A micro-movement that preceded his primary defensive technique. Thanos stored that information, waiting for the right moment. The fight continued, and Thanos felt his breathing deepening, his muscles beginning to accumulate fatigue-related micro-damage. The android was smiling now, clearly recognizing that his strategy was working. Just a matter of time before Thanos feinted a stumble, let his guard drop fractionally. Android 17 took the bait immediately, committing to a powerful strike aimed at forcing a knockout. And there it was, the left-hand movement preceding his energy barrier. Expecting a counterattack. Instead, Thanos dropped completely beneath the strike and swept the android's legs. The unexpected tactic caught 17 mid-momentum, disrupting his balance. Before he could recover, Thanos' hands locked around the android's ankle, and with a roar of effort, he spun like a discus thrower and released. Android 17 flew across the arena, crashing into the boundary barrier with enough force to create a massive energy discharge. He recovered almost instantly, no fatigue, no reduced capacity, but Thanos had already closed distance. Another grab, another throw. This time slamming the android directly into the lunar surface hard enough to create a crater. Ring out based on sustained boundary impacts or inability to continue. Thanos reminded him, already positioning for another throw. "I may tire, but you can still be incapacitated." The android's expression shifted from confident to tactical. This had become a different kind of fight, not endurance versus attrition, but technique versus restraint. And while 17's infinite energy meant he couldn't be exhausted, Thanos' superior mass and grappling expertise gave him edge in a match focusing on positioning and throws rather than sustained trading of blows. The match continued, both warriors adapting their approaches. Android 17 became more defensive, using barriers and evasion to prevent being grabbed. Thanos accepted this shift, using the breathing room to recover slightly while maintaining pressure. They circled each other, both recognizing that the next committed exchange would likely decide the bout. Then 17 made his move a feint within a feint, appearing to overcommit to an energy blast while actually positioning for a counterattack. But Thanos had been studying the android's patterns for the entire fight, and he recognized the setup. When 17's real attack came a devastating combination meant to exploit the expected defensive response, Thanos simply wasn't there. The Titan had moved into the initial feint rather than away from it, accepting the energy blast damage to position himself for a grab. His hands locked around 17's torso, and before the android could react, Thanos executed a spinning throw that would have made a judo master proud. Android 17 hit the boundary barrier once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession as Thanos continued the momentum-based throw. The energy barriers flashed with each impact, the containment field registering significant boundary violations. On the 4th impact, Whiss's staff glowed. Excessive boundary contact, Ringout declared. Victory. Thanos. Android 17 stopped himself mid-flight after the call, hovering in the arena with visible frustration. That's actually pretty annoying. I had infinite stamina and you still won. Infinite resources mean nothing if they cannot be properly applied, Thanos replied, breathing heavily now. 2 consecutive fights had taxed him significantly, and he could feel the accumulated fatigue in his muscles. But you fought well, Android. Your endurance would have defeated most opponents. As 17 exited the arena, Thanos saw Gohan stepping forward. The half-Saiyan looked different from his father, scholarly, almost gentle in bearing, but with eyes that carried depths of power carefully restrained. His stance suggested someone who'd mastered combat, but didn't enjoy it, who fought from necessity rather than love of battle. This would be a different challenge entirely.
Gohan descended into the arena with none of his father's enthusiastic energy or Vegeta's prideful posture. The half-Saiyan moved with quiet purpose, his scholarly demeanor masking the tremendous power Thanos could sense coiled beneath that restrained surface. This was a warrior who'd achieved strength not through desire for combat, but through necessity. Someone who'd been forced to become powerful to protect what mattered. "I'm going to be honest with you," Gohan said, his voice calm and measured. "I don't enjoy fighting. I'd rather be researching or spending time with my family. But my dad explained what you represent, what you've done in your universe, and what you were considering doing here." His expression hardened, and suddenly Thanos could see the warrior beneath the scholar. "So I'm going to make something very clear through this fight. We protect this universe, not through culling or balance, but through becoming strong enough that no one can implement those philosophies against our will." Thanos felt genuine respect for this declaration. No bravado, no philosophical posturing, just clear statement of protective intent backed by evident power. "Then show me, half-Saiyan. Demonstrate how protection through strength differs from control through power." Whis' staff flashed. Third match, Son Gohan versus Thanos. Begin. Gohan didn't transform immediately. He tested Thanos first with basic strikes, and the Titan recognized the tactical assessment happening. The scholar was analyzing fighting style, measuring response times, cataloging defensive patterns. This wasn't a warrior who relied on overwhelming power. This was someone who studied opponents and found optimal solutions. Thanos engaged carefully, already feeling the fatigue from 2 consecutive high-intensity matches. His breathing was labored, his movements fractionally slower than at full capacity. But he'd faced worse. Entire campaigns fought across weeks without rest. Battles against cosmic entities that tested every ounce of will and endurance. 2 fights wouldn't stop him. Then Gohan transformed, and everything changed. His hair shifted to black with silver highlights, his aura exploding outward in pure white energy that made the previous combatant's power seem restrained by comparison. This was Ultimate Gohan, the form where all his potential had been unlocked, requiring no Super Saiyan transformation because his base state had evolved beyond such limitations. The speed difference was immediately apparent. Gohan closed distance faster than Thanos could fully react, his fist crashing into the Titan's guard with force that sent shockwaves rippling through the lunar surface. The Mad Titan barely blocked the follow-up combination, each strike landing with precision that suggested not just power, but perfect understanding of anatomy and force application. "You're strong," Gohan said, his voice calm even as he unleashed devastating attacks. "But strength without growth stagnates. That's what happened to you, isn't it? You became so certain your philosophy was correct that you stopped questioning whether better solutions existed." Thanos caught a punch, attempted a counter throw. But Gohan's ki control let him shift his weight mid-movement in ways that defied physics. The half-Saiyan twisted out of the grab and landed an uppercut that lifted Thanos off the ground. Before he could recover, Gohan was above him, both hands cupped together. Kamehameha! The blue energy wave crashed into Thanos at point-blank range, driving him down into the lunar surface with catastrophic force. The crater deepened, rock vaporizing from the thermal energy, and Thanos felt his armor cracking under the sustained assault. This was power on a completely different scale from what Piccolo or Android 17 had demonstrated. This was the strength of someone who'd fought beings capable of destroying the universe itself. When the beam finally dissipated, Thanos pulled himself from the crater, his armor badly damaged, purple skin showing burns and impact trauma. He was hurt, genuinely hurt, and 3 consecutive fights without recovery had accumulated damage that even his formidable constitution couldn't simply ignore. "You could end this," Thanos said, assessing his remaining capacity honestly. "That attack could have killed me if you'd committed fully. Why hold back?" "Because killing you doesn't teach you anything," Gohan replied, descending to the crater's edge. "My father thinks everyone deserves a chance to change, to understand why their path was wrong and choose better. I inherited that belief, even if I'm more pragmatic about it." His aura intensified. "But I also inherited the part where we absolutely won't let harmful philosophies be implemented, even if it means fighting until the threat is eliminated." The scholar-warrior's stance shifted into something more aggressive, and Thanos recognized the unspoken message: yield now, or face escalation that would leave him seriously incapacitated. The tactical calculus was clear. He could continue fighting, possibly land effective attacks against Gohan through experience and technique. But the accumulated fatigue combined with the power differential made victory statistically improbable. But Thanos of Titan had never based decisions on probability alone. He charged, pouring every remaining ounce of will and strength into one final assault. His fists moved faster than they had the entire tournament, fueled by desperation and refusal to surrender. He caught Gohan off guard with a sheer ferocity, landing 2 solid hits that actually pushed the Half Saiyan backward. Then Gohan's eyes flashed with that buried rage, the power that emerged when protecting those he loved. His counterattack was overwhelming, a combination so fast and precise that Thanos couldn't defend against it. Each strike targeting nerve clusters and joint vulnerabilities that his combat experience had revealed. The final blow, a double palm strike to the chest, launched Thanos across the entire arena. He hit the boundary barrier and felt his consciousness waver. Through blurred vision, he saw Gohan standing at the crater's center, not celebrating or gloating, just waiting with patient determination. "I yield," Thanos said, his voice carrying across the arena despite the physical strain. "You've proven your point, scholar. Protection can be absolute without becoming oppression." Whis' announcement seemed to come from very far away. Third match concluded. Victory, Son Gohan. Mandatory recovery period before subsequent matches. A Senzu bean appeared in Thanos' hand. Whis had teleported it directly to him. The angel's voice was gentle. "Eat it. The bean will restore your physical condition completely. We can't have you facing Goku and Vegeta while already exhausted. That wouldn't demonstrate anything useful." Thanos consumed the bean and felt its effects immediately. Injuries healed, fatigue vanished, energy reserves restored to full capacity. The sensation was disorienting. Complete recovery in seconds, eliminating all consequences of the previous battles. This was the casual miracle that Earth's defenders had access to. Another tool that reduced death's permanence and suffering's duration. As he stood fully restored, Thanos saw Goku stepping into the arena, that characteristic grin spreading across the Saiyan's face. But there was something different in his eyes now. Not hostility exactly, but serious assessment. The friendly warrior who'd first greeted him in West City had been replaced by someone who understood what this fight actually represented. "Okay, Thanos," Goku said, stretching his arms and rolling his shoulders. "You fought 3 of our strongest warriors and won against 2 of them. That's impressive, like really impressive. Most beings can't beat Piccolo's tactics or outlast Android 17's infinite stamina. And Gohan in his ultimate form is stronger than me in most of my transformations." He settled into a stance that radiated readiness. But here's the thing about Saiyans. We live for fighting strong opponents. We push ourselves past every limit to reach new heights. And I've broken more limits than anyone. Thanos felt anticipation building despite his restored physical state. This was the warrior who'd achieved Ultra Instinct, who'd fought gods and survived multiversal tournaments. This was the pure-hearted Saiyan, whose philosophy had challenged everything Thanos believed. "Then show me, Son Goku," Thanos said, settling into his own combat stance. "Show me what it means to break limits through will, rather than necessity."
Whis' staff glowed with particular intensity as he announced this match. 4th bout, Son Goku versus Thanos. This will be the penultimate challenge, as Prince Vegeta has demanded the honor of facing our visitor should Goku prove insufficient. The angel's smile suggested he found Vegeta's pride simultaneously amusing and predictable. "Combatants, are you prepared?" "Always," Goku said, his grin never wavering. "I'm ready," Thanos confirmed. "Then begin." Goku moved first, and the speed was transcendent. Not merely fast, Thanos had fought fast opponents. This was speed that seemed to bypass the space between positions, making the Saiyan appear to teleport through micro-distances. The first punch crashed into Thanos' hasty guard with force that cracked the lunar surface beneath his feet, despite not making direct contact with the ground. The Mad Titan immediately recognized he was facing something categorically beyond the previous opponents. Goku's base form not even transformed, yet carried power that matched Gohan's ultimate state. And those eyes, studying him with innocent curiosity even while delivering devastating combinations, suggested depths of potential still untapped. Thanos countered with techniques honed across thousands of battles, using superior mass and tactical positioning to create openings in Goku's aggressive assault. He landed a solid hit to the Saiyan's ribs, another to his jaw, forcing Goku to actually defend rather than simply overwhelmed through speed and power. "You're really good at this," Goku said, his tone genuinely complimentary even as he blocked another combination. "Most people can't keep up once I start getting serious. You've got tons of experience, I can tell. How many fights have you been in?" "More than I could count," Thanos replied, pressing his advantage while Goku seemed distracted by conversation. "Across countless worlds, against beings ranging from planetary threats to cosmic abstracts." "That's so cool." Goku's eyes lit up with that childlike enthusiasm. "I'd love to hear about." He disappeared mid-sentence, and Thanos felt the impact against his back before his mind could process the movement. Goku had used instant transmission mid-combat, teleporting behind him for a surprise attack. Some of those fights. Sometime. But first, let's see how you handle this. The Saiyan's aura exploded outward, his hair shifting to golden blonde, his eyes turning teal. Super Saiyan, the legendary transformation that had ended Frieza's terror and become the benchmark for Saiyan power. The energy radiating from Goku increased 50-fold in an instant, and his next punch carried force that sent Thanos skidding backward despite his perfect defensive stance. "Super Saiyan is the basic transformation," Goku explained, his voice carrying that teaching tone that suggested he genuinely wanted Thanos to understand. "It multiplies our power massively, but it's also the foundation for everything that comes after. Every Saiyan who can transform starts here and builds upward." Then his aura intensified further, electricity crackling around his body as his muscles tensed with additional power. "Super Saiyan 2, more power, better control, faster reactions." The next combination came impossibly quick, each strike landing before Thanos could fully adjust his defense. "I first achieved this watching Gohan fight Cell. He unlocked it through rage at seeing his friends hurt. I got there through training." Thanos felt his restored stamina already depleting under the relentless assault. Goku wasn't giving him time to implement strategy or exploit patterns. The Saiyan's combat style was pure aggressive evolution, constantly adjusting, never committing to predictable sequences. And then there's Super Saiyan 3. Goku's hair extended dramatically, growing down his back, his eyebrows disappearing entirely. The power increase was exponential, 400 times his base strength, making the arena itself shake from sheer energy output. This one's got drawbacks: burns through energy really fast, but for short bursts, it's incredibly powerful. The beating Thanos received in the following seconds was methodical and comprehensive. Goku demonstrated the absolute peak of Super Saiyan 3's capabilities, moving faster than thought, hitting harder than planetary-scale weapons, his combat technique perfected through decades of facing universe-ending threats. Every strike targeted weak points, exploited micro-openings, demonstrated perfect understanding of force application and anatomical vulnerabilities. Thanos crashed into the boundary barrier, then the ground, then the barrier again. He'd faced cosmic beings and survived, but Goku's combination of overwhelming power and refined technique was pushing him beyond anything he'd previously encountered. The Mad Titan's vision blurred, his tactical mind struggling to formulate responses when every defensive position was breached before fully established. Then Goku powered down, his hair returning to normal black, his breathing heavy from Super Saiyan 3's energy drain. "That's the traditional Saiyan path," he said, still smiling despite the exertion. "But then I learned there was something beyond just transforming and powering up. Something about becoming stronger through understanding rather than force." His aura changed quality, becoming more refined, more controlled. Blue energy enveloped him as his hair shifted to cyan Super Saiyan Blue, the form that combines Super Saiyan transformation with godly ki. The power wasn't as explosively massive as Super Saiyan 3, but Thanos could sense the difference. This wasn't just multiplication of strength. This was fundamental transformation of energy quality. Super Saiyan Blue uses God Ki, Goku explained, his voice carrying reverence for the power. "I learned it training with Whis after fighting Beerus. It's about perfect ki control combined with Saiyan transformation. Not just hitting harder, but hitting smarter." The difference was immediately apparent. Goku's strikes carried divine energy that bypassed conventional durability, attacking on fundamental levels that armor and enhanced physiology couldn't fully protect against. Thanos felt each impact resonating through his being in ways previous attacks hadn't. These weren't just physical strikes, they were assaults on his existence itself. "You're wondering why I'm showing you all this," Goku said, landing another combination that left Thanos reeling. "Why I'm explaining my techniques instead of just beating you. It's because I want you to understand what breaking limits actually means." His expression grew more serious, the innocent joy replaced by genuine intensity. "Every transformation I've shown you represents me pushing past what should have been possible. Super Saiyan? Legendary. Supposedly appeared once every 1,000 years. I made it achievable through determination. Super Saiyan 3? Most Saiyans never reach it. I got there through training in the afterlife. God Ki? That was supposed to be exclusive to actual gods. I learned it because I refused to accept that gods were the ceiling." Thanos tried to mount an offense, But Goku's speed in blue form was transcendent. The Saiyan appeared in multiple positions simultaneously, not illusions, but genuine speed, making him occupy several points in space through movement faster than perception. Each position delivered strikes, creating combinations that approached omnipresence through velocity. That's what you don't understand about our universe, Goku continued, his voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. We don't accept limits. We don't say this is impossible, so we need a different solution. We make the impossible possible through training, through bonds, through refusing to give up. He appeared directly in front of Thanos, his fist already in motion. Your philosophy was about accepting that problems couldn't be solved, so you decided to eliminate the problems instead. Our philosophy is that every problem has a solution if we get strong enough to implement it. The punch landed with divine force, and Thanos felt something crack, not bones, but something deeper. His certainty, perhaps. His conviction that his path had been the only viable option, because here stood living proof that impossible limits could be surpassed through will and determination rather than culling and control. Then Goku's aura changed again, and Thanos felt genuine fear for the first time in the tournament. The divine blue faded, replaced by something transcendent. Silver-white energy enveloped Goku's body, his hair shifting to match, his eyes becoming platinum pools that reflected not just light, but understanding itself. His movements lost all wasted motion, becoming perfectly efficient, and his power stopped registering as something that could be measured. Ultra instinct, Goku said, his voice carrying ethereal quality. The technique of the gods where your body moves and reacts without thought. Perfect defense, perfect offense, complete separation of consciousness and combat. His stance became utterly relaxed, yet completely ready. This is what happens when you break past even godly limits. When you achieve something angels train millions of years to master. Thanos couldn't track the first strike. His body moved to defend reflexively, but Ultra Instinct Goku was already attacking from a different angle. The combination that followed transcended combat. It was art, philosophy, perfect expression of martial transcendence made physical. Every attack found openings that shouldn't exist, exploited timing gaps measured in fractions of microseconds, demonstrated understanding of battle that bypassed conscious thought entirely. The mad titan of Titan, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, wielder of the Infinity Stones, was being systematically dismantled by a Saiyan who'd grown up in the mountains and learned martial arts from a turtle hermit. Thanos hit the ground, the barrier, the ground again. His armor was shattered, his body pushed beyond anything he'd endured in his home universe. And through it all, Goku's platinum eyes held not hatred or judgment, but something far more devastating. Compassion mixed with absolute certainty that this was necessary. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," Goku said, his voice gentle despite the overwhelming violence. "I'm doing this so you understand viscerally, not just intellectually, what our universe represents. We don't need your balance through death. We achieve balance through growth, through becoming strong enough that the problems you wanted to solve through elimination simply stop being problems. One final strike, a palm thrust to Thanos' chest, that contained not killing intent but teaching purpose. The Mad Titan flew backward, crashed through multiple layers of lunar rock, and finally came to rest at the very edge of the arena boundary, his consciousness hanging by threads. Through blurred vision, he saw Goku power down to base form, the silver-white energy fading as the Saiyan walked toward him. No gloating, no superiority, just that same innocent smile mixed with genuine concern. "You okay? That last hit was pretty hard. Here." Goku extended a hand to help Thanos up. "You fought really well. Seriously, lasting this long against Ultra Instinct is amazing. Most people can't even perceive the attacks." Thanos stared at that extended hand, at the being who just demonstrated power that rivaled cosmic abstracts from his home universe, who'd achieved godly techniques through nothing but determination and training, who'd systematically proven that every assumption underlying the Mad Titan's philosophy was flawed, and who was now offering to help him stand, as if they were training partners rather than philosophical opponents. Thanos' voice was hoarse, damaged vocal cords struggling to form words. "I yield. You've proven your point, Son Goku." Comprehensively, Whis' announcement carried a note of satisfaction. Fourth match concluded. Victory. Son Goku, as expected. Senzu Bean recovery period before the final bout. As Thanos consumed another Senzu Bean and felt his body restore itself once more, he saw Vegeta descending into the arena. The Saiyan Prince's expression carried dark satisfaction. His arms crossed as he assessed the Mad Titan with obvious disdain. "So, Kakarot broke you without even trying," Vegeta said, his voice dripping with contempt. "How predictable. The fool has a gift for making opponents realize how outclassed they are." He smirked. "But Kakarot fights with his heart, always holding back that last bit of killing intent. I don't have that weakness. When I fight you, Titan, you'll understand the difference between Kakarot's mercy and a prince's judgment." Thanos stood, fully restored physically, but carrying mental and spiritual weight that Senzu Beans couldn't address. He'd been comprehensively defeated by a warrior who represented everything he dismissed as naive optimism, and now faced another Saiyan, one whose pride and controlled rage suggested a very different kind of lesson. "Then teach me, Prince Vegeta," Thanos said, settling into his stance one final time. "Show me what judgment looks like from someone who's walked both sides of conquest and redemption." Vegeta didn't respond immediately. He stood at the opposite end of the arena, his expression carved from stone, his dark eyes boring into Thanos with intensity that carried personal weight. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, far more dangerous than shouting. "I'm going to tell you something, Titan, that perhaps the others were too kind to express directly. Your philosophy isn't revolutionary or profound. It's cowardice wearing wisdom's mask." He uncrossed his arms, his stance shifting into combat readiness. "I know this because I lived it. When I served Frieza, when I conquered worlds in his name, I told myself it was necessary. that I was implementing order, that the weak needed culling to make room for the strong. Do you know what that really was? Thanos remained silent, recognizing this wasn't rhetorical question but genuine demand for acknowledgement. It was me justifying the fact that I wasn't strong enough to save my own planet. Vegeta continued, his aura beginning to crackle with purple-black energy. My father, my people, my entire race, Frieza, destroyed them all, and I was too weak to stop it. So, instead of admitting that weakness, instead of dedicating myself to becoming strong enough to prevent such atrocities, I told myself that what Frieza did was natural order, that the strong deserved to rule, and the weak deserved to perish. The Saiyan Prince's power began rising, but he didn't transform yet. It took Earth, took Kakarot, took my son, took fighting alongside beings who should have been beneath my notice to understand the truth. Strength without purpose is just destruction. Power without growth is stagnation. And philosophy that justifies killing because you're not creative enough to find better solutions is intellectual cowardice. Thanos felt those words landing harder than any of Goku's strikes. Because Vegeta wasn't speaking from naive optimism or pure-hearted idealism, he was speaking from direct experience of walking the path Thanos had taken and recognizing it as failure. I don't fight you to teach you, Vegeta said, his aura intensifying to the point where the lunar surface beneath him began cracking. I fight you to show you what you could have become if you'd chosen growth over culling. Prepare yourself, Titan. Unlike Kakarot's merciful demonstration, I'm going to break you with the same pride that you used to justify your atrocities. Whis' voice rang out. Final match, Prince Vegeta versus Thanos. Begin. Vegeta transformed instantly not to Super Saiyan, but directly to Super Saiyan Blue. His hair and aura blazing cyan as divine ki flooded the arena, but there was something different about his blue form. Something darker. His aura carried purple-black undertones that Thanos recognized from their earlier encounter. I've been training with Lord Beerus, Vegeta explained, his voice carrying edge like sharpened steel, learning to tap into destruction energy itself. Not Hakai, not yet, but enough to show you what real judgment feels like. The prince vanished, and Thanos barely raised his guard in time. Vegeta's assault was nothing like Goku's flowing combinations or explanatory demonstrations. This was surgical brutality every strike, designed to cause maximum damage. Every technique aimed at weak points. Every combination building toward devastating finishers. There was no mercy in Vegeta's attacks, but also no sadism. Just perfect execution of combat mastery refined through pride and endless training. Thanos tried to counter, to implement the tactics that had worked against previous opponents. But Vegeta's combat experience dwarfed even his own extensive battlefield knowledge. The prince had spent his life fighting, not conquering weak opponents, but facing beings that pushed him to his absolute limits repeatedly. Every technique Thanos attempted, Vegeta had seen variations of and developed counters through trial and bloody experience. You think you're special because you made hard choices? Vegeta snarled, his fist crashing into Thanos' ribs with force that cracked bone despite the Senzu bean's healing. I made those same choices. I killed entire civilizations. I served a tyrant who destroyed my race. And when I finally broke free, when I finally chose to fight for something beyond myself, do you know what I discovered? The prince's next combination was devastating, a series of strikes that targeted nerve clusters, followed by an energy blast at point-blank range, culminating in a roundhouse kick that sent Thanos spinning through the air. I discovered that all that conquest, all that necessary culling, all that harsh pragmatism had made me weaker, not stronger, because I'd capped my growth at what I could justify rather than pushing toward what I could become. Thanos crashed into the ground, and Vegeta was already there, hauling him up by his armor just to deliver another punishing combination. The Saiyan Prince's fury wasn't hot rage, it was cold. Controlled anger channeled with surgical precision into demonstrating exactly how comprehensively Thanos' philosophy had failed. My son, Vegeta said, his voice dropping lower, has a power called Beast that he unlocked protecting what matters to him. My rival has achieved Ultra Instinct through breaking past limits I'm still chasing. My wife has built technology that solves problems you thought required genocide. My daughter exists in a future where even after apocalypses, Life flourishes because we chose growth over culling. He released Thanos and stepped back, his aura intensifying further. You had the power to reshape your universe and you used it to kill rather than create. That's not wisdom. That's failure dressed as necessity. The prince's transformation deepened, his blue form taking on more prominent purple-black characteristics. This was the technique Whis had been teaching him, tapping into destruction energy not to erase, but to push his limits further. Ultra Ego, Vegeta had begun calling it, the antithesis of Kakarot's Ultra Instinct. Where Goku's technique was about perfect evasion and autonomous defense, Vegeta's was about accepting damage to grow stronger, channeling destruction toward evolution. This is what separates our philosophies from yours, Vegeta said, his transformed state radiating power that approached what Thanos had felt from Ultra Instinct Goku. We don't fear destruction. We use it as catalyst for growth. Every time I'm beaten, every time I face an opponent stronger than me, every time I'm forced to acknowledge my limitations, I transform that into motivation to surpass those limits. You faced the same challenges and decided the solution was eliminating challenges rather than overcoming them. The beating that followed was methodical education in what Saiyan pride actually meant, not arrogance, though Vegeta carried plenty of that, not blind confidence, though the prince never doubted his eventual victory. True Saiyan pride meant refusing to accept that any limit was permanent, that any challenge was insurmountable, that any defeat was final. Thanos found himself overwhelmed not by superior power, though Vegeta's strength was certainly immense, but by the sheer force of will behind every strike. Each hit carried the weight of a warrior who'd climbed from genocidal servant to universal protector through nothing but pride and refusal to accept that he couldn't surpass everyone eventually. I'm going to tell you the worst part, Vegeta said, appearing behind Thanos and delivering a kick that launched him toward the arena boundary. The absolute worst part about your philosophy, Titan, it's that you had the power to implement it, and it still didn't work. Thanos hit the barrier, his vision swimming, his restored body accumulating damage at rates that would have killed most beings. Through the pain, he processed Vegeta's words, the uncomfortable truth that even in his home universe, even after gathering the Infinity Stones and achieving his goal, the balance had been temporary. Population would regrow. Resources would deplete again. His solution had required eternal vigilance and repeated implementation because it addressed symptoms rather than causes. You know what would have worked? Vegeta pressed his assault, not giving Thanos time to recover, using those stones to enhance growth systems, to expand resource availability, to grant civilizations the knowledge they needed to achieve sustainability. But that would have required creativity, patience, and accepting that you didn't have all the answers. The prince's final flash began charging, his hands cupped together as purple-blue energy accumulated to catastrophic levels. Instead, you took the shortcut, killed half of everyone and called it wisdom. That's not a philosopher, King. That's a mass murderer with a thesaurus. Final flash. The beam consumed everything in its path, and Thanos felt the full force of Vegeta's judgment made physical. This wasn't just energy, it was the channeled fury of someone who'd walked Thanos' path, recognized it as fundamentally flawed, and dedicated his existence to embodying the opposite philosophy. The attack carried the weight of every person Vegeta had saved by choosing growth over culling. Every limit he'd surpassed by refusing to accept caps on potential. Every moment he'd chosen to protect rather than conquer. When the beam finally dissipated, Thanos was barely conscious, his body held upright only by will that even he wasn't sure he still possessed. Vegeta stood before him, transformed back to base form, his expression carrying not triumph but grim satisfaction. "I yield," Thanos said, the words barely audible. "I yield. You've made your point, Prince Vegeta." Comprehensively and brutally. Whis' voice carried finality. Tournament concluded. Prince Vegeta victorious in the final bout. Thanos of Titan has faced all challengers and been defeated by the last two. The demonstration is complete. As another Senzu bean restored Thanos' physical state, though not his philosophical certainty, the gathered warriors assembled before him. Goku with his innocent smile, Vegeta with his arms crossed in expression of disdain, Gohan with his scholarly assessment, Piccolo with his meditative calm, Android 17 with his smirk, and Whis, overseeing everything with that maddening, serene amusement. "So," Goku said, his tone gentle despite having just witnessed Thanos receive the beating of his existence. "Do you understand now why we don't need your kind of balance?" Thanos looked at each warrior in turn, processing everything he'd experienced since arriving in Universe 7. The technology that solved resource problems he'd considered unsolvable, the Dragon Balls that reduced death's permanence while somehow not causing civilizational collapse. The warriors who'd achieved godly power through determination rather than birthright. The civilization that had survived repeated apocalypses and maintained social cohesion through trust in protectors rather than authoritarian control. And most damning of all, the fact that this universe operated on principles completely opposite to his philosophy and thrived where his approach had ultimately failed even in implementation. "I understand," Thanos said slowly, each word carrying the weight of belief structures crumbling. "That my universe lacked something fundamental that yours possesses. Not just technology or Dragon Balls or even powerful warriors. It lacked the cultural and philosophical framework that makes growth preferable to culling, that makes protection more effective than control, that makes breaking limits possible rather than accepting them as permanent." He met Vegeta's eyes directly. "You called me a coward, Prince. You were correct. I faced impossible problems. And instead of dedicating myself to becoming capable of implementing impossible solutions, I chose the shortcut of elimination. I told myself it was pragmatic, necessary, the only option. In reality, I simply wasn't creative or determined enough to find better answers." Vegeta's expression didn't soften, but he nodded slightly acknowledgement, if not forgiveness. "So what now?" Piccolo asked. "You've observed our universe, fought our warriors, seen our civilization. Beerus gave you the choice. Accept that your philosophy was flawed and change, or face Hawkeye. What's your decision?" Thanos stood silent for a long moment, feeling the weight of that choice. His entire existence had been built on the certainty that he alone possessed the will to do what was necessary. Admitting that foundation was flawed meant acknowledging that every conquest, every atrocity, every life he'd ended in pursuit of balance had been wrong. Not just ineffective, but fundamentally based on false premises. The mad Titan of Titan, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, faced the hardest battle of his existence, the one against his own certainty. "I choose to change," he said finally, his voice carrying a weight that bowed his massive shoulders. "I cannot undo what I've done in my universe. I cannot restore those I eliminated in pursuit of flawed balance. But I can acknowledge that my path was wrong, that better solutions existed if I'd possessed the wisdom and determination to pursue them. And I can learn from this universe how to become someone who creates solutions rather than eliminates problems." Goku's grin widened to its full, innocent brilliance. "That's great. See? I knew you could figure it out. Hey, you should stick around Earth for a while. Train with us, learn our techniques, and maybe when you go back to your universe, you can help people there understand this stuff too. Kakarot, do not invite the genocidal alien conqueror to extended stay without consulting." Vegeta started, but Bulma's voice cut through via Whis' communication crystal. "Actually, Vegeta, having someone with Thanos' scientific knowledge and different universal perspective could be incredibly valuable for my research. Plus, imagine what Capsule Corp could develop if we understood dimensional barrier mechanics from someone who's actually crossed them." "Of course you're thinking about the research applications," Vegeta muttered, but his tone carried affection beneath the exasperation. Whis tapped his staff thoughtfully. "Lord Beerus will need to approve any extended stay, but given that the dimensional breach needs monitoring and repair regardless, having its cause present for study seems practical. I'll present the suggestion." His smile turned pointed. "Though I suspect Lord Beerus will demand regular tribute of Earth delicacies as supervision fee. I can arrange that." Bulma's voice replied immediately. "Mom's been experimenting with new dessert recipes anyway. Think of it as diplomatic relations with our god of destruction." Thanos listened to this casual conversation about his fate, about integrating a being who'd planned universal genocide into Earth's society through treaty compliance and research collaboration, and felt genuine disorientation. In his universe, defeated threats were eliminated or imprisoned. Here, they apparently became training partners and research consultants if they showed genuine willingness to change. "I continue to accept these terms," Thanos said. "I will remain in Universe 7 under supervision, contribute what knowledge I possess toward beneficial research, and learn your universe's approach to problems I previously solved through elimination, though I must warn my presence may continue attracting attention from my home universe. Beings who seek me, or who learned of the dimensional weakness I created, let them come," Vegeta said with dark satisfaction. "We'll demonstrate the same lessons we taught you. This universe doesn't tolerate conquest or culling. Regardless of philosophical justification, any being who attempts either faces the Z-Fighters. And we don't lose. We've beaten gods, monsters, tyrannical emperors, and even Erasure itself," Goku added cheerfully. "Whatever your universe sends, we'll handle it. That's what we do." As they began teleporting back to Earth, Whis' casual transit making dimensional travel seem trivial compared to Thanos' violent breach. The Mad Titan found himself experiencing something unprecedented. Not hope exactly, but perhaps its precursor. The acknowledgement that alternatives to his dark certainty existed and had proven more effective than his carefully reasoned atrocities. He'd come to Universe 7 seeking to understand or challenge their approach to balance. Instead, he'd found warriors who'd comprehensively demonstrated that his entire philosophical framework was flawed, that growth surpassed culling, that protection proved more sustainable than control, that breaking limits through determination achieved more than accepting them through pragmatic resignation. The Tournament of Titans had been his education in what strength actually meant when divorced from domination. 3 months after the Tournament of Titans, Thanos stood in Capsule Corporation's Dimensional Research Laboratory, analyzing data streams that would have been impossible in his home universe. Bulma worked beside him, her genius complementing his centuries of accumulated knowledge in ways that pushed both their understandings forward. They developed preliminary models for controlled dimensional transit, mechanisms to repair the breach his arrival had caused, and theoretical frameworks for preventing similar incidents. But more than research occupied his time. Goku insisted on regular sparring sessions, treating the former Universal Conqueror like any training partner, and somehow making that casual acceptance more transformative than any punishment could have been. Vegeta supervised with perpetual suspicion but grudging acknowledgement that Thanos was genuinely attempting to change. Piccolo engaged him in philosophical discussions that challenged every remaining certainty. Even Gohan would occasionally visit, sharing scientific papers and engaging in theoretical debates about resource management and sustainable civilizational growth. Earth's defenders had done something impossible. They'd taken a being dedicated to universal genocide and shown him not just that he was wrong, but why better alternatives existed. Not through naive optimism, but through overwhelming evidence of a universe that thrived specifically because it rejected his philosophy at every level. Thanos would never be a hero. Too much blood stained his past. Too many worlds bore scars from his certainty. But perhaps, with time and genuine effort, he could become something different than what he'd been. Not the Mad Titan seeking balance through death, but a scholar learning what balance through growth actually meant. The dimensional sensors suddenly spiked, and Thanos' enhanced awareness detected the same signature pattern that had accompanied his own crossing. Another breach was forming someone or something from his home universe attempting transit. He looked up from the data streams, his expression carrying grim determination mixed with newfound purpose. Whatever came through would face not the Mad Titan they might have known, but something unexpected. A former conqueror who'd learned from warriors that protection surpassed domination, that growth exceeded culling, and that true strength meant breaking limits rather than accepting them. The alarms intensified, and Thanos felt Goku's energy signature approaching at speed, the Saiyan always ready for a new challenge, always excited to test himself against unknown opponents. Through the laboratory windows, he could see Vegeta taking flight toward the dimensional disturbance, pride and protectiveness driving him to defend his planet from any threat. Thanos of Titan stood and moved toward the window, watching Earth's defenders mobilize with practiced efficiency. They would handle whatever emerged, just as they'd handled countless previous threats. And this time, they would have an unlikely ally, a former enemy who'd learned through comprehensive defeat that their way was better than his had ever been. The dimensional breach tore open in the sky above West City, and Thanos prepared himself for whatever came next, not as the Mad Titan seeking to impose balance through death, but as a warrior learning to protect through strength, standing alongside beings who'd proven that philosophy worked. His journey in Universe 7 was far from over, but perhaps, for the first time in centuries, he was finally walking a path that led somewhere other than inevitable failure, dressed as necessary evil. The adventure never ends. More stories await.